Welcome to Reddit Stories Podcast, where an insane Karen is losing it at a Build-A-Bear birthday party. Our first post is from r/entitled parents. Entitled mom throws a Build-A-Bear party, then demands all of the bears as gifts for her kid. I should have known something was off when the birthday invitation arrived. It was for my friend Jessica's daughter, Emily, who was turning 6. The invite was pastel pink, covered in teddy bears, and read, "Join us for a Build-A-Bear birthday party. Fun, friends, and furry friends." My daughter, Sophie, was thrilled. A party and Build-A-Bear? Kid heaven. I even texted Jessica, "Wow, this is so generous. Can't wait." She replied with a single thumbs up emoji. Red flag number 1. The day of the party, we arrived at the mall, where the Build-A-Bear workshop was already buzzing with the kids all hyped up on sugar and the promise of new stuffed friends. Jessica greeted us with her usual too wide smile. "Oh, good, you're here," she said, practically shoving us toward the store. Inside, everything seemed normal. Kids were giggling, picking out their unstuffed bearskins, while a couple of overwhelmed employees braced for the storm of 6-year-olds about to descend on their stuffing machines. Sophie grabbed a rainbow-colored bear and hugged it. "I love her," she squealed. "Great choice," I said. Then Jessica clapped her hands. "Okay, everyone, time for the activity." Activity? I thought we were just making bears. One by one, the kids picked their bears, stuffed them, and added those cute little hearts inside. They were giggling, twirling around, proudly holding up their creations. Then Jessica called for their attention. "Now, before we leave, let's all put our bears in this special bin so Emily can take them home and remember this special day with all her friends." Wait, what? I blinked. Surely I misheard her. Sophie, with her little arms wrapped tightly around the bear, whispered, "Mommy, we don't get to keep them?" Jessica continued beaming. "It's like a community gift. Emily will cherish all the bears you made for her." I glanced around, expecting some other parent to step in, but they all just stood there frozen, processing the insanity. Jessica, oblivious to the rising tension, added, "And don't worry, you're welcome to buy another bear for your child at the counter." I had to physically restrain myself from laughing in sheer disbelief. This woman had just invited an entire group of kids to build bears for her daughter's benefit. A nervous cough broke the silence. Then one of the dads, shifting uncomfortably, said, "So we're supposed to just give these to Emily?" Jessica's smile faltered. "Well, yes. I mean, that's how gifts work, right?" "Oh no, ma'am. You do not mess with a bunch of moms who just spent an hour watching their kids pour their souls into creating the perfect stuffed animal." The murmurs started, then full-blown protests. One mom outright laughed. "Are you serious?" Another crossed her arms. This was not in the invitation. And then, like a dam breaking, chaos erupted. "No way. I already paid for my kid's bear. This is crazy." Meanwhile, the kids, oh, the poor kids, they realized what was happening. You could see the slow-motion heartbreak spread through the crowd. Sophie clutched her bear like it was a life preserver. Another little girl started crying. A boy threw his bear on the floor, screaming, "This is a scam." Jessica looked around, flustered. "Come on, guys, it's a gift. It's for Emily." I took a deep breath, crouched down next to Sophie, and said, "Sweetie, that's your bear. You made it. You do not have to give it up." That was the permission she needed. She nodded firmly and held on tighter. The moms collectively decided our kids were keeping their bears. One by one, parents made a break for the door, some subtly, others outright marching past Jessica, who was now sputtering about ruining Emily's birthday. I grabbed Sophie's hand and we strolled right past her. "I can't believe this," I muttered under my breath. Jessica's final attempt to guilt trip us was legendary. As we left, she called out, "This is why birthdays aren't special anymore. No one wants to teach kids generosity." No, Jessica. You're just an idiot. In the days that followed, the mom group chat blew up. Some moms said Jessica was just misunderstood. Others weren't so forgiving. Turns out, she had done something similar before, inviting people to a pottery painting party where guests were expected to leave their creations for her home decor. She's since been soft-blocked from all future birthday invites. Oh, and Emily? That poor kid. I heard she had exactly one bear in that special bin at the end of the party. It was the one her grandmother made. And honestly, that feels like justice. Am I the jerk for not letting friends use my backyard for their wedding because they don't want me to bring a +1 plus update? Last summer, I bought my grandparents' house. This house holds a lot of memories for me. It was the place where my friends and I spent our childhood, and one of those friends is Dave. The house sits on a large piece of land, complete with a lake and a gazebo. When I was planning to buy the house, I was supposed to be doing it with my then girlfriend, Leslie. However, as I was going through the process of getting approved for the house, I found out Leslie had had a huge amount of credit card and personal debt that she had hidden from me during our 4-year relationship. It was a deal breaker, and I broke up with her about 6 months ago. Dave and I met through his long-term girlfriend, Kim, who happens to be Leslie's cousin. Dave and Kim are now engaged and planning to get married in April. When I bought the house, they asked if they could have the wedding ceremony at the gazebo. I agreed, thinking it would be a great way to celebrate their special day. In December, I started dating again. Leslie, however, has not taken this well at all. She seems to think we're going to get back together, and she's made multiple attempts to reconcile. I've made it clear that that's not happening, but she refuses to accept it. Here's where things get complicated. Dave and Kim have asked me to not bring a +1 to the wedding for Leslie's sake. I found this request completely ridiculous. Their wedding is being held at my house, on my property, and they want to tell me that I can't bring a date because of my crazy ex? If that's really the case, I told them, then they need to find a new venue. They were upset, especially with the wedding only a few months away, and we've been stuck at an impasse ever since. Now, a few things came up in the comments that I'll address quickly. First, I'm fully aware of the liability issues that come with hosting an event. That's why I purchased, and they reimbursed me for, a special event insurance policy that covers any damages, injuries, or claims up to $2 million. We did this as soon as I agreed to host the event. The wedding will have about 75 guests, along with 5 catering staff and 5 security staff. The security is needed since the property is open to the public. The house has hosted events much larger than this without issue. There are 2 cottages on the property, one with 1 bathroom and the other with 2. The only part of the house that won't be locked during the wedding is the finished basement, which has 2 bathrooms. As for the invitations, everyone who is single, not in an established relationship, got a +1, including Leslie and me. I sent in my RSVP and indicated that I would bring a date, which is when they told me I couldn't bring one anymore, all because Leslie had a meltdown about it. They're worried she'll cause a scene at the wedding. Leslie has said she'll be planning on bringing someone with her, though I don't know if she actually will. Now for the update. I met with Dave this morning. We talked for almost 2 hours. I laid it out for him that I thought he was, at best, a bad friend. I went over our history and all of the other things that had me questioning our friendship. That was the bulk of our conversation. Then we moved on to discussing the breakup with Leslie and all the drama that's come up in the last 6 months. Despite Leslie's craziness, I've gone out of my way to accommodate her feelings. She's shown up at my house in the middle of the night. I didn't get a restraining order because I didn't want to escalate things. I avoid places where I know she or her family will be. Leslie has also been spreading lies about me, telling her family and mutual friends that I cheated on her and took advantage of her financially, neither of which is true. I've kept quiet to avoid embarrassing her. And yet, Dave is still demanding that I put Leslie's feelings before my own. I told him, you and everyone else need to stop coddling her like she's a child. Dave admitted that Leslie has been acting crazy, but he still says, she feels like she didn't get closure after the breakup. She wants to have a conversation with you to get that closure. He also told me that Leslie has been working hard to pay off her debt and has already cleared almost $10,000. She wants to talk to me about her progress, hoping it will change my mind. I told him, do you really expect me to go to the wedding and have a conversation with her? I have her blocked everywhere, and I don't plan to speak to her, date or not. Dave insisted that Leslie would lose it if we didn't talk at the wedding. I told him, if that's the case, for the sake of my property, I can't have Leslie here. If she's unstable enough that I need to be forced into a conversation with her, she's not safe to be a guest at my house. I made it clear to Dave, Leslie cannot come to the house or be on my land. I'm still willing to host the wedding, but I can't trust Leslie won't cause trouble based on what Dave is telling me. At this point, Dave lost it. He yelled, forget you and your crap. I don't need it. So I told him if that was his attitude, then the wedding was off. He stormed out, and now we're at a standstill. So, am I the jerk for standing my ground and telling Dave that Leslie cannot come to my house or be part of the wedding after all the drama she's caused? Not the jerk. I think one of your key takeaways from this is that you need to start living your life. Stop avoiding places you normally go to. Clarify to people why you broke up, not that you cheated, and put together any evidence of her crazy behavior so you can get a restraining order if needed. You also need to tell people why the wedding isn't happening at your place as you know they're going to make you out to be the bad guy. Have you ever had a crazy ex that just wouldn't leave you alone? Haven't we all, Reddit boy? Haven't we all? A customer screamed at me once, so now I eat his favorite food. When I was a university student, I worked at a small supermarket for over a year. I was 19 at the time, and since the UK minimum wage is age-based, I was making very little. It wasn't exactly the glamorous job I had imagined, but it was money, and I needed it. One of the worst parts of this job was the complicated lottery ticket system we had. It was a total nightmare. Cashing in a single ticket involved something like 15 steps, and any mistakes or corrections had to be signed off by the manager, who, of course, was rarely around when we actually needed him. It took me a while to get the hang of it, and I was super careful to avoid messing up in the beginning. On my second day working there, an old guy came in to buy some groceries, and of course, he wanted a few lottery tickets too. He didn't seem to appreciate my lack of speed, and, to make matters worse, he leaned in ridiculously close, about 8 inches from my face, and screamed, "Yes," when I was double-checking the numbers I was about to print. Looking back, it wasn't that big of a deal, but at the time I was young, small, and feeling pretty intimidated. His loud, sudden scream made me feel completely upset and honestly afraid. It was pretty clear that he was enjoying watching me get rattled. I had some previous retail experience, but this was the first time I felt completely powerless. I ended up crying in the employee bathrooms that day, a moment I'll never forget. Unfortunately, it wasn't the last time I found myself in tears over customers. The job was tough, and the customers weren't always kind, but I needed the money. And I was a fast learner, so I worked overtime whenever I could. I was clocking in 45 to 55 hours a week, and, much to my dismay, this old guy turned out to be a regular. This meant I got to serve him pretty often over the next year or so, which of course was not fun. Despite the initial stress of the job, I slowly got the hang of things and started doing a little bit of everything. I trained new staff, kept track of the refrigerator's temperature logs, ordered stock, logged and cleared expired items, and even did price reductions for items approaching their sell-by dates. It became a routine. 25% off at 9 a.m., 50% off at noon, 75% off at 4 p.m. Over time, I learned a few things about this guy who had screamed at me on my second day. He was rude to everyone, especially the younger women who worked there. He was retired, and while I'm sure he wasn't doing terribly, he didn't seem very well off. I also noticed that he always seemed to show up right after certain meat items had been reduced for the final time, especially when they were nearing their expiration dates. Now, there's nothing wrong with being on a budget or being elderly, but there's something seriously wrong with screaming at someone who's just doing their job, especially when that person is handling your food. The upside to this whole situation was that since I was working full-time, I was the one serving him 99% of the time. That gave me plenty of chances to get a little revenge. It was a slow burn, like cooking a frog, as they say, but I was patient. I figured that since I was broke and always looking for a way to save a little money, I could stick it to this guy and save myself some cash at the same time. Every time I saw him, I would sneak his favorite near-expired items to the back of the dairy section, out of his reach. Then, once he left in a huff after finding the shelves empty, I'd swoop in and buy them for myself. His go-to was always sausages, but honestly, I didn't care for sausages all that much. I started buying them anyway, just out of spite, and I ended up eating sausage regularly, even though I didn't particularly like it. It was my little revenge meal. In the 10 months that I worked there, he probably managed to buy the reduced sausages maybe 5 times. Meanwhile, I'd happily munch on mine and think about how he was getting more and more upset. Other shoppers seemed to catch on to his routine, and he got visibly frustrated each time he came in to find his usual discounted items gone. I would always act sympathetic. "Sorry, we've sold the last ones. Maybe try again later in the week." To this day, it's still my revenge treat. The lesson? Don't scream at the people who handle your food. It's just not worth it. My neighbor is suing me for having a loud voice for the second time. A few years ago, I moved into a rental property. At the time, there was a rental crisis happening, and it was the only property I got approved for out of the hundreds I applied to. The location was great, close to my work, and the house itself was really nice. I was honestly thrilled. The real estate agent sent me an email from the landlord, which included the usual welcome details, where the best local cafe was, how the dishwasher worked, and then, almost as an afterthought, by the way, the neighbor is notorious for calling the council. I didn't think much of it at the time. That is, until a few months into my lease. I woke up one morning to find a parking fine on my car's windshield. I had parked in the driveway, but was hanging over the fence line by about a meter. I was super confused as to why the local council was issuing parking fines in the outer suburbs until I remembered the email. I quickly realized my neighbor had called the council because I was a meter past the fence line. Just for some context, I was living in a shared house with two other people. The driveway barely fit 2 cars, and parking on the street was a nightmare since it was lined with townhomes and apartments. My neighbor, who lived next door in the detached house, had a rusted-out trailer parked on the street right in front of her house, which took up 2 parking spots. The trailer had flat tires, was falling apart, but was still registered, so legally she could leave it there. I checked Google Street View and confirmed with other neighbors that the trailer had been there for at least 25 years. So to sum it up, my neighbor was paying $150 a year to keep her busted trailer registered just to block parking in front of her house. At the same time, she was calling the council on anyone who parked even slightly out of place. It didn't end there. One night, I had to hang some clothes on the back deck, so I set up a portable work light. It was one of those tripod lights you use when painting. It happened to be pointed into her backyard, and a few days later, I got a letter from the local council saying I had been reported for light pollution. I rang the council, and they assured me it was just a formal letter saying someone had made a complaint, and as long as my story checked out, I shouldn't have to worry about it. The next day, the real estate agent called. They told me that while the landlord had instructed them to ignore the neighbors' complaints, they were receiving a lot of them. Apparently, every time I had a visitor, even if it was just a relative dropping by for 5 minutes in the middle of the day, she was on the phone with the real estate agent complaining about me. She was sending weekly updates about the length of my lawn and even emailing them if I forgot to take my bins out. At this point, I decided to confront her. I knocked on her door and asked her what her problem was. It quickly escalated, and she started screaming at me, claiming that my voice was too loud and I was being a nuisance. Then the legal stuff started. About 1.5 years ago, I came home to find a statement of claim. My neighbor was suing me for costs, damages, and seeking a permanent injunction to stop me and anyone in the house from making any noise, light, or smoke. I later found out that in the 10 months leading up to this, she had filed over 160 noise complaints to the police. We're talking about complaints for things like playing my car radio while washing it in the yard at 2 p.m. on a Sunday, or playing an acoustic guitar on the front porch at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. The police even mentioned in one of their reports that they had never detected any noise and labeled her a vexatious complainer. In those 10 months, I had never even interacted with the police. Not once did they issue me a warning. One winter night, my roommate put 2 logs in the designated fire pit in the front yard and sat around it with a friend. My neighbor claimed in the lawsuit that we had lit a bonfire on the front grass and demanded that I replace all the curtains in our house because the smoke had damaged them. She also claimed she had suffered damage from cigarette smoke, even though we don't smoke. She was seriously taking me to court to stop me from having guests who might smoke a cigarette in my own yard. I had to spend thousands of dollars on a lawyer, but eventually we went to mediation. My neighbor demanded that I make no noise whatsoever after 7 p.m., 7 days a week. I argued that this was ridiculous, and after 7 hours in mediation, I made it clear that her demands were insane. I told her she had no case regarding the smoke or light complaints, and I also explained that if she has an issue with my roommate's behavior, she needs to take that up with him, not sue me. Eventually, we reached a settlement. She agreed to drop the lawsuit, and I agreed to limit the volume of my voice outside after 10 p.m. We swapped numbers, and things seemed like they might settle down. But almost instantly, she started harassing me through text. I'd be inside, cooking dinner in the kitchen, and she'd text me telling me to be quiet. Again, we were living in separate, detached houses. I knew there was no compromising with her, so I blocked her number. One Saturday night, we had a few guests over. I was sitting in the living room watching TV when I noticed a few police officers standing on the footpath shining torches into my yard. I went outside to check if everything was okay, and the police told me they were responding to a noise complaint, but they couldn't detect anything that was unreasonable. The officers looked pretty frustrated, and just as I was about to go back inside, my neighbor came outside and started screaming at them, demanding that they do their jobs and arrest me. The police just rolled their eyes and went over to confront her. I went back inside, trying to ignore the situation. Another year passed, and here we go again. Another lawsuit, this time in district court. This time, there would be no mediation, no compromise. I was fighting back. I went through the dates she had listed in her lawsuit, and one of the nights she was complaining about was a Saturday when I was playing a game of Uno in my bedroom with 2 other people between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. I honestly didn't think things could get worse, but somehow they did. This neighbor has turned my life into a constant battle, and I had no idea how much further she would go to make life miserable for me. Am I the jerk for taking my dad home after he was late and blamed me for missing the train? So my dad, who's 60, my sister, who's 22, and I, 20 male, had planned to take a train downtown for a car show. I was the one who organized everything and paid for it all, thinking it would be a fun family outing. I told my dad to be ready by 12:15 so we'd have enough time to drive to the station and park before the train left at 1:04. The drive was about 25 minutes, so I thought we'd have a good 49 minutes to get to the station, find parking, and get to the terminal. I had never been to that station before, so I wanted to give myself extra time in case something went wrong. Well, my dad said he'd be out by 12:15, but when my sister and I got to his house at 12:10, he didn't come outside until 12:31. I told him we were going to be late, but he said it was fine since the drive was only 25 minutes. We finally got to the station at 12:55, which was cutting it close. Here's where the first issue came up. The parking lot was full of reserved spots. I parked in one so I could get out and ask someone where the regular parking lot was. Of course, the customer support area was empty because it was a holiday. At this point, it's 1 o'clock and I'm starting to panic a little. My dad spotted a security officer in the lot and told me to ask him where the regular lot was. The officer said it was on the other side of the road. So I quickly drove over there, parked, and ran back to the boarding area where my dad and sister were waiting. I was literally 20 meters away from the train when the doors closed. My dad and sister didn't board because they saw I couldn't make it. I was upset, but figured it wasn't the end of the world since there was another train in an hour. That's when things really started to go downhill. My dad got mad at me for missing the train, saying I should have known where to park instead of wasting time looking for the regular lot. At that point, I was really frustrated. I reminded him that I wanted to leave earlier because I didn't know the station, and since he was late, we didn't have enough time. He said I should have researched the parking lot beforehand. That set me off, and we got into a huge argument. By now, I was so upset that I didn't even want to go to the car show anymore. I told him I'd wait in the car while he and my sister went. I offered to pick them up when they came back. He called me selfish, saying that he and my sister had been looking forward to this family outing and that I should take the next train since we'd already made the trip to the station. I told him no. I was in tears from the argument, and I just didn't want to spend the whole day with him after everything he had said. He got in the truck, and we headed home. On the way, he told me to never speak to him again because I was selfish and had wasted his time. I know he'll probably hold a grudge for at least a month. So now I'm wondering, am I the jerk for taking him home instead of going on the next train after he was late and blamed me for everything? Yikes. And not the jerk. He was late. That's what made you miss the train. You had time built into the schedule and you told him when he had to be ready. When you say he will hold a grudge for at least a month, it sounds like this is his regular means of shirking responsibility for his own actions. I'm sorry this is the kind of parent you have to deal with. This situation was not your fault. My cat who was missing for 11 years has been found, but they won't give him back. In 2012, my family and I moved to Oklahoma with our cat, Shadow, who was almost 5 years old at the time. Unfortunately, he got out of the house one day and never returned. For 2 long years, I searched endlessly, holding on to hope that someone would find him since he was microchipped, but nothing ever came up. By the 3rd year, I reluctantly accepted that he might have passed on, and we mourned his loss. Even after all this time, we still talk about how much we loved him and missed him. Last year, we moved back to my hometown, and recently we faced a devastating tornado. Although our house was fine, the financial burden was challenging since we only get paid once a month on the 1st. We had to replace over $500 worth of groceries we had already purchased for the month, as well as other necessities to make our house comfortable again. Then, out of the blue, a vet's office called to inform me that they had found Shadow. It turns out that he had been living on a residential street for the past 6 years, surviving with the kindness of the neighborhood people who fed him. He had no regular vet visits, no cozy bed, and no protection from the weather except sporadic help from compassionate souls. Recently, he got into some trouble, was injured, and needed minor care and stitches, which is when they discovered his microchip with my contact information. I was ecstatic to hear the news and couldn't wait to reunite with my sweet boy. However, due to our financial situation, I couldn't make the trip until August 1st. The woman who found him initially agreed to wait, but unfortunately, she started hesitating and wasn't sure what to do with him during his recovery. We both scrambled to find funds to arrange the trip, and thankfully, the bill was lower than expected. Even my parents chipped in from their emergency fund to help me retrieve Shadow. But then, heartbreakingly, I was told that another couple in the neighborhood had taken him in, and they already grew attached to him and their kids loved him so much that they decided to keep him. Since then, I haven't heard anything from them, and I don't even know where they live, except for the town. So now my kids and I have to go through the mourning process all over again. It's devastating, and emotionally, this loss will stay with me forever. We love you, Shadow, and miss you dearly, and I'm so sorry that we won't be able to see you. Edit. I spoke with the vet's office this morning at 9:30, and they're contacting R to request that she bring Shadow back so I can pick him up. They also made it clear that R cannot rehome my cat, and he is legally mine under Oklahoma law. They were incredibly apologetic about the whole situation, and I've been advised to file a police report since R admitted that he never went to the vet during the years he lived in the neighborhood and was brought in as a stray without a home. Hopefully, I'll hear back soon. Update. After a long day of waiting, I just got off the phone with the animal hospital. R has agreed to return Shadow to them so I can pick him up tomorrow. The police report will stand until I have Shadow back in my possession. If everything goes as promised, I'll have my baby boy back tomorrow. Update. I received a call first thing this morning from the animal hospital, and Shadow is now finally home. He's responding to his name, playing, coming up for pets, purring up a storm, and exploring the house. Although he looks a bit rough, he's settling in wonderfully. We're letting him take his time to adjust, and he will never be allowed outside again. Last update. He's eaten, explored the house, purred and played. Now it's bedtime, and after such a long day, he deserves a good rest. Usually Reddit makes me lose faith in humanity, but that one, that made me feel so good. I cheated on my wife, and now she's about to find out. My affair partner got served divorce papers out of nowhere 2 days ago at work. Her husband knows about us. It's only a matter of time before my wife finds out. Don't know if I have days or hours before the world as I know it is gone. Took some time off work today to spend time with my wife and our 2 daughters. My body is in turmoil, but strangely, my mind is clear. It reminds me of the days leading up to my dad's passing. Time has slowed down, and I'm aware of all the things surrounding me. It's a nice feeling. My day today was filled with observation of details and appreciation. My wife's smell and the clothes she wears, my daughter's laughter, the color of the kitchen tiles, the dog in the yard. I feel blessed to have a healthy and beautiful family. What will my daughters think of me? I look at my wife that I love with all my heart, and I see a woman who stood by me no matter what. We had our fair share of ups and downs like most couples, but I never imagined a life without her. How do I justify a 6-year affair? Is that even forgivable? I don't know what the future holds. All I know is that the storm is coming, and I'm here basking in the sun until the clouds come rolling in. I plan to confess over the weekend. Even if I know the outcome, I pray she does not leave me. This was so not worth it. Any suggestions on how to confess? How do you start? What do I tell my daughters? I've already made an appointment with a therapist. What else can I do? Wish me luck. Edit. Yesterday, I reached out to my brother for advice. He left his wife some years ago and married his affair partner. He seemed happy with her. The grass is not greener for him after all, and he's planning on leaving her, but he's stuck at the moment. His advice is to not tell my wife and to minimize if confronted. He also said that I should let down affair partner gently so she doesn't go nuclear on my wife and family. I'm hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. Not trying to be mean or anything, but you never imagined life without her? You had a 6-year affair and you love your wife with all your heart? It sounds like you're really confused. OP. I'm not confused. Never was. I don't have a problem separating love from hooking up. My heart is loyal to my woman, and she is it for me. 6 years is a long affair by any measure. If it wasn't worth it, what was a fair partner to you? Someone you could also mess around with along with your wife? For the record, this is the classic definition of throwing someone under the bus to save yourself. Maybe start by owning up to what you've done. If you think the affair partner's husband will reach out to your wife and tell her everything he discovered, I would suggest you start telling the truth. Whether your long-term affair is forgivable or not is no longer in your control. OP. So many responses about how I don't value my affair partner. Well, since I'm pouring out my heart here, let me tell you about my affair partner. She's gorgeous and a smart woman who is funny and open to different experiences. She's younger than myself and my wife. She's fit and she's beautiful. But she's not my wife and does not even compare. 6 years on and off is a long time to invest. As I see it, she's an adult who made her own decision to cheat with a married man on her husband for whatever reasons. Do I care for her? Yes, 6 years is a long time. Do I love her? No. Did I say to her that I loved her? Yes, of course I did. But I lied, just like I lied to my wife. Did I use her? Yes, I did. Did she use me too? Of course she did. We both knew we were playing with fire. You're selfish. 6-year affair, and it was only not worth it because you and affair partner were caught. Not only do you not deserve your wife, but you do not deserve your affair partner. Update. I was prepared for all scenarios, but not this one. The doomsday did not come in the shape I was expecting. Affair partner convinced her soon-to-be ex to not spill the beans to my wife in exchange for a smooth divorce. I thought I was in the clear. Yesterday, affair partner sent me a blurry photo of my wife in the car with another man. She claimed they walked hand in hand to his car from a store in a nearby town to ours. She got a shot of the plates too. After some digging, I now know that she's having an affair. Don't know how long for sure, but at least for 6 months. He's a single dad, our age, and is telling her to leave the marriage. She's telling him that she loves him. I'm afraid to confront her. I feel numb at this point. Took a day off of work. Any advice on how to proceed? Should I just let it run its course and monitor? Should I confront and hope for the best? Should I confess to my affair and hope that we can all come clean and make way for a new marriage? I'm so utterly confused. I have rehearsed the things that I would say and do if she were to find out about my affairs. I was not prepared for this. I think you need to find out why your wife cheated. If her reasons line up with yours, maybe there's a way for you to move to don't ask, don't tell. OP. I'm desperate to talk this out, to know why this happened and how invested she really is with this jerk. If she's doing this out of revenge, maybe I have a chance, because if so, she does feel something for me at least. I can't imagine her being emotionless, throwing away over 20 years. I know this woman like I know myself. Deep down, she's hurt, but also so very stubborn and proud. I just want to know if she knew about my affair, why didn't she confront me? I would have chosen her over affair partner in a nanosecond. And what is she hoping to find with this guy? He's no better than me, hooking up with a married woman. Ugh. I'm trying to respect her wish to have some space, but I'm desperate to just talk to her. Update. My marriage seems to be over. Confronted my wife this past weekend, set her down without warning, and told her I knew she was having an affair, and with whom. Asked her if she loved him and what her plan was. She was caught off guard, went to the bathroom for 10 minutes. When she came out, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, I know about your affair too. I've known for some time now. I love him and I want a divorce. Next days were a blur. I tried talking to her, but she just shuts me down. She has moved into the spare bedroom and is making appointments with law firms. Has told our 2 daughters. I have signed up for emergency therapy. I'm on meds for dealing with anxiety and a lack of sleep. This is surreal. Heard her talk to him last night and cut the internet cord. Kind of crazy because I need internet for work and she just switched to her phone. Oh man, so many emotions are running through me. How did this happen? How can she not feel any emotion? Over 20 years gone. All the love, friendship, partnership, intimacy, jokes, memories, plans for our future, gone. Just like that. No looking back. I feel so blindsided, and the only person I can talk to is my brother who lives across the country. Sorry to vent to you here. Just needed to get this out. Would I be the jerk if I told my wife I would fire her? Married for 16 years. We met in college, both employed and students, and married before graduating. She became pregnant. I dropped out to work full-time. She continued until around 7 months pregnant. We agreed she would take care of the kids and be a stay-at-home mom until the kids were old enough to go to school during the day. She's been back to school 4 times for different things each time and has worked maybe 1 year of the 16 years we've been married. Our youngest has been in school for the past 6 years. I've supported everything she wanted to do. She had multiple MLMs, craft making, and business ventures with friends over this time period, and she doesn't stay with any of them for more than a year at most. During this same time period, I've upgraded jobs multiple times, finished my bachelor's, and obtained a master's. I went from working barely above minimum wage security to working in tech, making over $130,000 a year. I never stopped supporting her or being there for my family. I remember taking a group meeting conference call for a course's team project on Google Hangout while I was at Disney World with the family. The first career jump I had, I went from working a double shift security job to driving 6 hours away to an interview, thinking I was late, but I was actually early because it was in a different time zone. While I've been doing everything I can to build us up, I feel like she's been doing nothing but drag us down. She always says she's going to get a job, but she does nothing at home either. She's supposed to be taking classes now to be a teacher, but she doesn't do anything on her schoolwork. I've put up with a lot of this over the years, and I think what finally set me off was she opened up a letter from the state we live in talking about teachers' retirement plans. She subbed maybe 3 times in the last year, and I guess they had her in their system for that. She turned to me and said, "Can you help me figure out what I should do for my retirement plan?" I burst out laughing, like legit laughing. I've never used language like this with her in my life, but I couldn't help it, and I was like, "You have to have a dang job before you can retire." She just looked at me shocked. I kept laughing. She said that it wasn't funny, but to me, that was the funniest thing I had ever heard. In the end, I want to know if I would be the jerk if I set her down and we had a conversation that went like this. Imagine we both worked full-time and made enough money that we could have a live-in nanny housekeeper chef. I know that'd probably cost a lot, but that'd be pretty cool, right? Now imagine after you got home every day, you had someone like that. Someone that said that that was their job and you agreed that's what they'd do since that was their job. And the house still looked the same, dirty place as it is now. And instead of cooking foods, they just put some dino nuggets in the air fryer every day. We'd probably fire them, right? Gentle, everyone sucks here. First, I think you've made a mistake letting it go for this long. It sounds as though your trust in her is poisoned, and there's a lot of resentment there. I think this contributes to your understandable laughter. Even in print, it sounded contemptuous and rude. Secondly, she's selfish and unfair to let you work to support her and the family without being a true partner to you. You do need to talk, and I guess I can see how your question is reasonable, but I think it's very inflammatory and likely to escalate rather than create useful discussion. What do you actually want here? Do you want her to make an income or be a better stay-at-home mom and homemaker? I think you should aim for the former, as she doesn't sound like she's thriving as a homemaker. Some people just aren't cut out for it. Can you apologize for being rude? Begin by saying you've been thinking more about retirement since her question, and realize that her staying at home is a luxury you can't afford if you want long-term financial stability and adequate savings. Then suggest she get any part-time job that she can. Doesn't matter what, just get back into the workforce while she finds her career. Say you'll be supportive, etc., but that the family cannot afford MLM and entrepreneur stuff, and she needs a traditional part-time job while sorting things out. Am I the jerk for eating my meal indoors in comfort since my father-in-law was in my patio chair? I, 36 male, am a big guy, 6'8" and 398 pounds, 203 centimeters, 180 kilograms. My father-in-law is also a big guy, 6 feet tall and 200 pounds, 182 centimeters and 90 kilograms. Because of my size, I can't sit in a regular plastic patio chair. My father built me a custom chair for a gift when I was 18. I love that thing. It even has my initials carved into it. It's sturdy and ridiculously large. Whenever we have people over to the house, it's very obvious which chair is meant for me. I have an oversized folding chair that is nowhere near as comfortable, but it allows me to at least be social. I can have a beer in it, but eating is a terrible idea. We had family over this weekend. Normally, if someone sits in my chair when I'm grilling, my wife will ask them to pick a different seat, but she can't stand up to her dad. He decided that since he's a big guy, he deserves the big chair. And my wife chose not to remind him that that's the only chair I can sit in without breaking it or hurting myself. When I was done grilling, I came over and asked if I could please have my chair so I could join everyone. He said he was comfortable and that he wasn't going to move. Rather than start a stupid argument, I just served myself my food and went into my office to eat. Because of the work that I do, my office is soundproof and locked, and it's in the basement and it locks as well. I could lose my job and be criminally liable if some of the information I deal with wasn't properly compartmentalized. Once everyone figured out that I had just left to find a comfortable space to eat, they all started bugging him to move since he was literally in the only spot I could sit and there were plenty of other seats. My wife tried to get me to come back, but my phone was upstairs and I was enjoying my peace and quiet. I ate quickly and came out as soon as I was done, but the damage was already done. My father-in-law was embarrassed by everyone except my wife for sitting in my spot. He was very red when he apologized for taking it. I said no problem and sat to socialize with everyone. My wife said that I behaved poorly and caused her father to be yelled at by her mom, and that even my kids told him that he shouldn't be sitting in my chair. I would have eaten in the kitchen upstairs, but it was full of food and people. We don't eat in the living room. I guess I could have eaten in our bedroom, but I have a perfectly acceptable place to eat downstairs. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You did everything right. You asked him to move, he refused. You didn't freak out, you ate someplace else. Your father-in-law was a jerk, and he's embarrassed that everyone noticed. My ex's girlfriend expects me to take her kids for a weekend. Background info. My ex is not actually my ex. We've been separated for 9 years now, but we've never actually signed papers for numerous reasons, financial being the biggest one. We've co-parented our son well for those years, and for the past 8 years, we've included my boyfriend in the process. We've been doing quite well at this, and the three of us have established a pretty good relationship. 2 years ago, however, my ex got a new girlfriend. Her and I don't get along, mainly on her part. And no, I don't just say this because it's my side. I've always encouraged my son to respect her and try to get along with her, but he just can't stand her or her 2 daughters. I don't mind her youngest. She's hyper and bounces off the wall, but she's 8, so it's to be expected. The oldest one, who's 11, the same age as my son, she's a jerk. She actively ridicules and belittles her sister, my son, and my daughter, who's 6. She's rude to me, my ex-in-laws, and even my ex. This girl is absolutely out of control. Background out of the way. So last weekend was my son's weekend at his father's. However, my ex and his girlfriend have been invited to a party. My ex and I were discussing it when he dropped my son off on Wednesday, and he mentioned that it might be easier if we switched weekends around, but he wasn't sure if he could find a babysitter for the 2 girls, so we had to wait and see. I was fine with that and told him to just keep me informed. Later that night, his girlfriend sent me a message saying that since I was taking my son for the weekend, number 1, I could just take the 2 girls and keep them for the weekend too. Before I could even respond to this, she added that she would send them over clothes and some money so we could get pizza. I told her that I wouldn't be taking her girls, that I wasn't taking my son for the weekend, that he lives with me, and his father and I were just switching weekends around, and I certainly wasn't taking her kids for the weekend. She sent a message back saying it was very rude of me not to take her girls since she took my son every other weekend. Before I could respond again, she sent another message saying she'd send over $15 for a pizza. I told her that she didn't take my son on the weekends, that my son spent the weekends with his father, and reiterated again that I wouldn't be taking hers. She responded asking what I was doing that I couldn't take the girls. I told her we weren't doing anything. We were just going to have a nice relaxing weekend. She asked why I would ruin her and my ex's weekend by not taking her daughters. By this point, I was annoyed, and I told her that I didn't like her oldest daughter, and she was a brat, and she wasn't allowed in my home outside of emergency situations. She responded by saying that I was an awful person and a terrible mother, and I didn't deserve to have my kids since I clearly didn't understand parents who just need a break. I ended up blocking her, but wow. Edit. I don't know where the girl's biological dad is. Ex-girlfriend is from the West Coast, we live on the East Coast, and I've never felt it's in my place to ask. She doesn't end up raising my son on the weekends. My ex knows our son isn't a fan, so they typically go fishing, camping, or hiking. My ex loves our son and spends as much time with him as possible. I took screenshots of our conversation, and I plan on talking to my ex when he picks up our son on Wednesday. I currently haven't heard from either of them, so I guess we'll see if she tries to drop them off tonight at 6. Edit 2. So I just got off the phone with my ex, who called to ask when I had agreed to take the kids, since last he knew that wasn't happening. I sent him screenshots of the conversation, explained that I had never agreed to take her daughters, and told him that I was quite clear with her on that. He said he was sorry and that he'd handle it, and that I'd see him on Wednesday when he picks our son up. Update. The night in question, when she had wanted to drop her kids off, my ex called me at 5 p.m., an hour before the usual pickup or drop-off time for my son. He asked if I had agreed to take the 2 girls since he knew I wasn't overly fond of having them over, but girlfriend had said yes. I told him that I quite clearly told her no, in no uncertain terms, and told him to check his email, and that I'd emailed him screenshots of the conversation. He sounded upset and told me he apologized and he had discussed it with her and see our son next weekend. He picked our son up yesterday for a few hours and apologized again, and told girlfriend that she was not allowed to contact me unless it was an emergency, and she was never to ask me to babysit again. I told him I understood. It wasn't anything on him, and left it at that. If you charge my card, I'm calling my bank to tell them it's fraud. In my 7+ years of working customer service, I don't think I've ever encountered a person as entitled, snobby, and downright arrogant as this lady was. Right from check-in, this lady was on a warpath to, what I would assume, project her clearly miserable life onto almost every staff member. To begin, her credit card was declining, so obviously our property system wouldn't allow the check-in. After being asked for a different credit card, she took offense and immediately blamed front desk. "I have money on my card." Clearly you don't. This was a lengthy and painful 15-minute process of trying to explain her card is declining and her idiotically trying to blame us. She finally provided a new credit card with the attitude of a 3-year-old mid-temper tantrum. To add, she kept mentioning she's part of a wedding group. I guess she thought she was entitled to royalty treatment because of this. Throughout the weekend, she had numerous complaints and demands. To summarize, this is what we dealt with. Demanded towels at her door every morning. Mentioned multiple times, staff had very unprofessional work ethics because we wouldn't bend over backwards for her every demand. Hated the furniture in the hotel. Complained breakfast room wasn't open 10 minutes before the stated time. She talked down to our housekeeping staff, was very snippy and rude about towels, garbage, and fresh linen. Hotel air quality was worse than a farm. I kid you not, those were her exact words. It felt like she had something to say about everything. Nothing made her happy. It was a giant headache all weekend for the entire staff. However, her final act before leaving our property is the cherry on top. As I'm checking her out of the system, I confirm the credit card on file is the one I'm charging. She replies, no, this hotel is horrible. I'm not paying. The fan was way too loud in my room." I laugh to myself that she snuck in another complaint right before leaving. I respond, "I'm sorry you feel that way. I could speak with my GM for a possible discount." In utter disgust, she looks at me and goes, "No, you're not charging it at all. If you do, I'm calling my bank to tell them it's fraud." She rolls her eyes, swipes up her luggage in a Hulk-like rage, and storms out of the hotel. I called my GM right after to explain what had just happened. My GM just goes, "Yeah, charge her the full amount. She stayed an entire weekend. She's not getting anything for free." Why do people suck? Am I the jerk for saying it's not my responsibility to watch my coworkers' kids? We work in a food service establishment. All the employees work with the food in the back and then hand it to the customers at the front counter. My coworker can't find a babysitter on most days, so she takes her kids to work and keeps them in the back. They're really hyperactive kids, so she brings a portable crib and an iPad to keep them occupied. Well, the 4-year-old already knows how to climb in and out when he gets bored and keeps running around the establishment barefoot and bothering customers. Her 1-year-old always tries to do like his brother and constantly climbs out only to fall down on the floor. My coworker uses her phone a lot, so she constantly goes outside for like 15 to 30 minutes at a time to talk on the phone. This is when she tells me to watch her kids while she's out. Usually I have no problem doing so if the store is empty, since I'm usually in the back anyways. But when we're in a rush hour and she does this, it's literally impossible for me to do so. Yesterday this happened. She went outside to talk to her boyfriend and left me with her kids, asking me to watch them. But as soon as she left, the family of 5 came in, so I told the kids to stay calm and set them up with a YouTube video while I took their orders. As I'm taking their order, I hear a loud thump. A second later, I hear a scream from the smaller one. I apologize to the family and excuse myself. When I go check on the kids, the baby is again on the floor, staring at me crying. I check that he's okay, and he is. I pick him up and finish taking the order with him on the side of my hip. Right then, my coworker walks in and asks what happened. I tell her. She tells me how she asked me to watch them. Then a customer chimes in, saying they thought the kid was mine. I said no, and then she tells my coworker that it's not my responsibility to watch her kid since that's not the job I'm getting paid for. My coworker gets her kid and goes to the back. After a while, the store emptied again, and my coworker started talking about how rude the lady was and how it's just a favor I'm doing for her. I said, "She's right though," and before I could even blink, I was getting called all sorts of names. Now she complained about me to our boss, and I'm being lectured about teamwork and empathy. I just simply don't understand when this one-time favor turned into part of my job description. So, am I the jerk? If this is a chain store, call corporate and the regional manager. They need to know that there are kids in the crib on site. Let them deal with that. There's no way I would take that lecture from my boss. Tell the coworker and your boss that you will no longer be babysitting. That's outside the scope of your job description. Not the jerk. Also, start looking for another job. Apply today. My dad told me to just walk home, so I did. A long time ago, in the faraway year of 1999, I was 11 years old and finishing my last year in elementary school. Right before my birthday, which was in May, my parents called the family together for a meeting. They told us my mom had gotten a new job and we would need to move. We weren't moving too far away, only about an hour, but that still meant moving away from my friends and going to a completely different middle school than the one I thought I'd be going to. Elementary school wrapped up and we moved to our new house in early July. In August, my parents and I got to take a tour of the school and meet the principal and some of the teachers. That was when we learned there weren't any buses that passed our new neighborhood. It was actually close to the school, so that meant I would be walking to and from there every day. My parents weren't too thrilled about this, but it was only 15 to 20-minute walk, and there was a path, so they came around on that idea pretty quickly. At the time, both of my parents worked full-time and 5 days a week. My mom worked Monday through Friday, and my dad worked Monday through Thursday and Saturday. Trust me, this is relevant. Since my older sister was away in college full-time, and they didn't trust me and my brother alone, my parents found a babysitter to be there when my brother and I would get home and watch us until my parents got home. My brother was 2 years younger than me and in the local elementary school. The school year started, and in early September, we got a massive heat wave that reached highs of like 96 degrees for a couple of days. The middle school was also an old building, and most of it was not air-conditioned. I only had 2 classes that had AC in the classroom throughout the day. At the end of those days, I was tired and not in any mood to walk an additional 20 minutes in the heat before getting home, so I used vending machine snack money to call the babysitter from the payphone. Cell phones were definitely not used by kids in those days. The babysitter, thinking he was just not letting me suffer in the heat, came to pick me up, and I would do some homework before Batman Beyond and Pokemon came on. I did try to call home 2 more times over the next 2 weeks when it was hot. The second time I got the sitter again, the third time I called was on a Friday. My dad answered. He was not happy with me. He told me it wasn't that hot, 85 degrees that day, that I shouldn't call the sitter away from the house and that I had to start growing up. He told me to walk home and we would talk more when I got there. So I walked home. I got a lecture and was told to not call the sitter again to be picked up. I said okay and told him I wouldn't call the sitter again or him again to be picked up. 2 weeks later, at the end of September, a hurricane passed through the area. Halfway through the day at school, it really started coming down. It got so bad that they let us out of school a half hour early, like that was gonna save us. By this time though, a lot of roads were flooded and the line for payphones was long. I remember what my dad told me a couple weeks ago, so I walked home. It took me almost 30 minutes to walk home from school that day, and I was drenched by the time I got home. The rain was coming down so hard, I couldn't see more than 5 feet in front of me. The roads were so flooded that the only way to drive in it was with a car that had 4-wheel drive. When I got home, both my parents, Mom got out of work early due to the storm, were there panicking because they hadn't heard from either the school or me. I just walked in through our garage, soaking wet, and said, "Hi Mom, hi Dad, I'm home." After they got over the initial shock and relief of seeing me home, my parents and I had this conversation. Mom, how did you get home? Me, I walked. Why? Dad told me to. When? We didn't get any calls from you or the school today. Me, well, a couple weeks ago I called the sitter a few times and asked for a ride home since it was hot. The last time I called, I got Dad. He told me I had to just walk home from now on and not to call for a ride again. Dad, I implied that there could be exceptions. You didn't say that. My mom turned on my dad and just told me to dry myself off and put my wet clothes in the dryer. I was drying myself off and I could hear them arguing. It was louder than the rain. When I was done and put my clothes in the dryer, my parents talked to me and told me I was allowed to call home, but only for emergencies. The next day, Saturday, my dad took me out to Blockbuster and I was told I could rent up to 5 movies for myself. He also paid for pizza that night and I got a whole pepperoni pizza for myself. That pizza lasted 2 days and no one else was allowed to touch it. My dad never lived that down. Good times. I just blew up at my family and I have honestly never felt better. For some background, I, 25 male, am the only male in my family, not including my son and nephews. Over the years, I have often been the forgotten one in the family or the one who's expected to just give things up for others. However, more often recently, it's been the constant need for favors, from building furniture to sorting out different technology to being the adult figure at an event for the younger ones due to them being unable to make it. For example, When growing up, I would often be left home alone while the others in my family went out for meals or for a girls' day. They even went on holidays without me. Or I would be expected to take my dad's old clothes. He lived separately from my mom, while my sisters got brand new everything, from clothes to big trips to having their prom entirely paid for while I had to stay home during my prom. So on to what caused me to blow up. Yesterday was Father's Day. As mentioned, I have a son myself, and since I am the only male, I am also the main role model for my nephew. I do not want to sound whiny, but this is now the 4th year in a row that I have been completely forgotten about. I'm a simple person, so I do not expect nor like big celebrations or gifts. I just wanted a simple message saying Happy Father's Day. Now, I would usually be able to ignore this and move on. However, Mother's Day in our family has always been a huge event, with constant gifts, meals, etc. Wishing for a simple message seemed so small in comparison, so I didn't feel like I was asking too much. It was not as if they had completely forgotten about it, as various members of the family posted about Father's Day, including little posts for those who have unfortunately passed on or are no longer part of the main family unit, like my father. So this ended with me blowing up at my family for constantly asking me for favors and to make sacrifices when I can't even get the smallest bit of acknowledgement in return. Honestly, I said a lot of things that I've been holding in for the longest time, and I don't think I have ever felt better getting it off my chest. Edit. As for what people have been asking, I've tried to talk to my family in the past about feeling like I have been treated unfairly. Communication isn't my strong point. I was diagnosed with high-functioning autism or Asperger's just last year, and it's always resulted in my family, mainly my mother and sister, accusing me of lying or misremembering stuff. As for the blow-up, it resulted in my mother lying about getting me something every single year. Not true, as I keep absolutely everything that has anything to do with my son or Father's Day, and then trying to make me feel guilty for being angry, followed by her quickly leaving the family group chat. My sister, however, quickly jumped in and started trying to belittle me as a father and defend my mother, followed by removing me from the group chat before I could reply. The only one on my side in all of this is my grandmother, who's the only one to treat me fairly. Overall, both my sister and mother completely missed the point I was trying to make and acted like I had asked for a huge celebration for me, when all I had said was that I give a lot to the family. It would have been nice to get a simple message from them. What specifically did you say when you blew up? Did you blow up at everyone all at once? Was it in person? What was their reaction? OP. We have, more accurately now, had a family group chat. Just after midnight on Father's Day, I sent a simple message in there telling everyone that I will no longer be doing people favors. When asked why, I simply asked them what day it was. This was followed by my mother claiming not to have had internet connection all day, despite sharing things on Facebook throughout the day, and claiming to have gotten me something every year, which is just completely not true, as ever since my son was born, I've kept anything to do with him in various memory boxes, from cards to gifts to little school things he's done. This was followed by me calling her out personally in the chat for not making any effort with me for years, pointing out that she has messaged me twice this year and visited my house 3 times in the last 3 years, but then always expecting me to make constant effort for her and do favors. We live less than 10 minutes apart. My mother then left the chat and hasn't messaged me since. My sister then jumped in and started saying I was being unfair by calling out my mother and tried to belittle me, and then quickly removed me from the group chat before I could reply. Update. Following me blowing up at my family, I received multiple messages either belittling me, playing the victim, or calling me unfair. So after a lot of people giving me the same advice, I've decided to cut them out of my life, mainly my mother and sister. I'm still in contact with my grandmother and younger cousins, as they have genuinely done nothing wrong and have been on my side. However, my mother has decided to be petty. In our family, each of us pays for a different streaming service and share the accounts. My mother decided to change the password to her account and kicked me off of it, so I've done the same thing with the service I pay for. I will, however, be logging my cousins and grandmother back into it, but not revealing the password. So yeah, I've cut off the ones who would make me feel worthless, and they've decided to be petty in return. Am I the jerk for refusing to cook for my wife anymore after she ate 3 of my meal prep meals? In my household, my wife doesn't cook. She's not good at it, and it's just easier on our taste buds if I cook for us. Earlier this year, we both decided that it was time for us to get back in shape. I decided to research some healthy cooking recipes and got big into meal prepping. My wife stuck with it for a few weeks, but ultimately decided to quit. Luckily, this wasn't too much of an issue for me. She's a nurse and frequently works much later than I do, as my typical workday is from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. So I would do my meal prep for the week on my day off, and then I would make my dinner like I did prior. When I meal prep, I make 6 days worth of 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and just swap around lunch and dinner. Last week, Thursday morning, I left for work and planned on coming back Friday morning and stopping through home and grabbing anything that I needed before heading to the office. This was known for weeks in advance, so I didn't spring this on my wife. I figured that she would be able to make sure she and our kid got dinner that night and breakfast the next morning. The next morning, I'm running late and drive through home looking for my last breakfast and lunch for the week, and they're gone. I don't have time to ask my wife, nor do I want to wake her up early before her shift, so I just go. I end up skipping breakfast and lunch. I get off of work and I'm starving and decide I'm just going to eat dinner early, and when I look for my dinner for that night, it's not there. This is what sets me off. When my wife gets home, I ask her what's up, and she admits to eating the meals. I tell her that I had portioned out food for an entire day and she had ate all of it in a single night. She said it was my fault as I didn't make anything for her and our kid to eat, and I just left the meal prep things, so that's what they ate. We got into an argument and she told me I was being selfish. So now I decided that if I'm selfish for expecting her to feed herself for one night, I would just not cook anymore, as I'm doing a lot of work for a selfish person. For the past week, I made my meal prep meals and store them at work and let her figure out what she wants to do for dinner by herself. Of course, I still cook for our kid, but only one portion small enough for him to eat by himself. I told her I would keep this up and that she should learn how to cook for herself if she's not happy about it. She told me that she's too tired when she comes home from work to cook and that I'm being incredibly petty. I think I'm justified, and I'm pushing her to learn a life skill that she should have had by now. Am I the jerk? Is it petty? 100%. Is it deserved petty? 100%. To be called selfish because you expect her to figure something out for one night is ridiculous and insulting. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for telling my sister the world doesn't revolve around her and her son? I, 24 female, am getting married to my fiance, male 26, in October of this year. We got engaged in January and couldn't be more excited. It's a very small wedding and we're only inviting close family and friends. The problem is with my sister, Lisa, who's 30. Lisa has a 2-year-old son with her husband. I don't have a super affectionate relationship with Lisa for multiple reasons that I can't fit into this post. We sent out the wedding invites last month. Our wedding ceremony starts at 1:30 p.m. and we asked our guests to please arrive at the venue by 1. The venue is in our hometown, so it's close by the majority of the people in our guest list, including Lisa. Lisa told me that the time wouldn't work because of her 2-year-old's nap schedule. She said he takes a nap at 12 and that she's not forcing him to be awake so she can take him to get ready for the event, or he will be a terror. I don't have kids, but I thought this was a silly reason. I asked Lisa if she could find a babysitter, and she said that she can't because everyone she trusts will be at the wedding. I suggested that they at least attend the reception, but she said she won't if she can't be at the wedding. She told me she won't attend the wedding unless we change the time. I told her that we can't do that. Lisa said she's not going then. I was quite hurt by this. I wasn't sure how to react in the moment, so I just abruptly ended the conversation with an excuse. A few days later, Lisa asked me if I thought about her suggestion. I reminded her that there's no way we can change the time. She told me she hopes I'm happy that they aren't attending and said that everyone is going to ask why she's not there, and it's all because I can't accommodate my nephew. I snapped at her and told her the world doesn't revolve around her and her son. She called me a bridezilla and has blocked me. My mom is pestering me to make amends with Lisa, but I just don't think I'm the one in the wrong. Not the jerk. Wow, I see why you don't have a good relationship. She's doing the best she can to make your day about her. Ask mom how exactly she wants you to make amends. She told you she won't come to your wedding because her son needs a nap. That's so petty. Am I the jerk for not giving my sister the wedding gift she wanted because of how she treated my girlfriend? My girlfriend, Naomi, and I have been together for over a decade. My younger sister, Sarah, and my girlfriend have never been super close, but are friendly when we get together. Or I guess they were. When Sarah was in high school, Naomi helped her out with some personal things. Sarah got married a few years ago. When Sarah announced her engagement to the family, she asked Naomi to be a bridesmaid, which surprised us a little, but Naomi was very excited because she's never gotten to do it before and probably won't have the chance. I want to be clear that there was no suggestion from either of us Sarah should ask her. It was about 2 seconds after she told us she was engaged. She said that she was so grateful to Naomi for the help when she was younger, and Naomi was very touched. A few weeks later, Sarah posts her bridesmaid proposal brunch. Naomi wasn't there. Sarah never said it to either of our faces directly, but clearly she had changed her mind. Naomi was hurt, but said she understood because she hadn't expected the ask anyway. That would have been fine, but then a few months later, Sarah asks Naomi to go to the bachelorette party and also to go get ready with her on the day of with her friends and bridesmaids. Same thing. Naomi says yes and even helped her find a good place to go and a rental. A month and a half before the wedding, I'm talking to my mom on the phone and she mentions that Sarah's at her bachelorette. No mention of it to Naomi. Now I'm kind of upset because Naomi was clearly very hurt at 2 invites and then being sort of ghosted. A week before the wedding, Naomi texted Sarah and asked about getting ready and hair and makeup, and Sarah responds, acting confused, and basically tells her nicely to just come with me. Then I was really upset. Sarah wanted this really expensive baking mixer thing for a long time, and I got it for her wedding gift. My mom had ruined the surprise, so she expected it. But after everything with Naomi, I felt like being petty, so I cut her a check instead and returned the mixer. A few days after the wedding, Sarah texts me saying, "I don't know how to ask this, but what happened to the mixer?" And I responded I didn't know how to ask, but what happened to treating my girlfriend like a human being. Now my brother and my new brother-in-law and my mom are all texting me saying that I'm ruining her happy time. Naomi says that I probably shouldn't have done that, but she feels a little vindicated. Am I the jerk? Update. So I talked to Sarah and things just got more confusing. She said when she asked Naomi to be a bridesmaid, she meant an honorary bridesmaid. She then said for the bachelorette party, Naomi had told her she works most weekends, so she didn't think that Naomi was able to attend and was just helping her to plan. Naomi said that she told Sarah to give her dates so she could take off. Naomi is a very non-confrontational person and had asked me to not bring up the bridesmaid or bachelorette thing because she didn't want to feel like she was pushing in at the time, which is why I didn't. The makeup thing, my sister said that Naomi had told her that she would do her own hair, so she didn't see a reason for her to come get ready with them. My sister's still upset with me and says I ruined her honeymoon and some other really crappy stuff, so I just hung up on her. She also said that not giving her the mixer was rude to her and her husband, which is hilarious. Party of 12 did not want to tip. The restaurant I work at has a policy, like many restaurants do, that if we get a party of 8+ people, we automatically include 20% gratuity into the tip. We don't end up pocketing the full 20% as we have to include the sales tax into it, so we're not taxing guests on the tip. So it's usually a guaranteed 18% tip, which is usually around $80 to $100 depending on the party. We inform the guests of this before they're even put on the wait list, so they're free to go somewhere else if they're not comfortable with it. Last Sunday, we were very busy in the morning. We were getting party after party. I ended up with a 12 top. It was an older guy, his wife, and what I presume was his daughters and their kids. The older guy and his wife I had served previously, and they were very kind, and he orders quite a bit of alcohol, running up the tab, so I was excited to serve them. From the moment I greeted them, I knew they were going to be a problem and they were going to complain about the 20%. Almost all of them had something wrong with their food. Not enough fries, not enough butter on the potato, the sauces taste weird, etc. They do 3 checks. I give it to them, and one of the daughters immediately starts getting loud about the tip. She asks what the additional charge is, and I explain to her it's the 20% gratuity they were informed about before they were set, and she goes on a 5-minute tangent about how it's unacceptable that we put that on there without her consent, and that we were taxing her for the tip. I thoroughly explain to her how the number was calculated, and tell her I can get the manager because he's the one that put it on there. She pulls out her phone and starts doing the calculations and says, "We'll let you know when we're ready. Matter of fact, why don't you go ahead and grab the manager?" I bring him over, he says exactly what I told them, and the daughter starts with, "First of all, the service was crap," which was blatantly rude and disgusting. They were my only table for most of the time I served them, and I was constantly running back and forth because they kept asking for more and more stuff. He ends up talking to the other daughter for like 20 minutes, and she tells him that they all used to be servers back in the day, to which I audibly laughed. One of my coworkers then comes up to me and says that one of the daughters approached her because she usually serves them, and she told the daughter that because it was super busy, she couldn't take any request tables. The daughter says, "We had a geek nerd serve us." And her husband, who's holding his baby, says, "He was the worst server we've ever had." I ended up getting the 20% tip, but will never be serving these people again. Grocery store employee accuses me of stealing. Worst mistake she ever made. I'm male, 24, if it means anything, I guess. So the title sounds bad, I'm sure. This afternoon, I had to take off from work for a few hours to take my grandma to a doctor's appointment. As such, I was dirty from working and in my normal work clothes, denim shirt and jeans along with some greasy boots. While she was in at the appointment, I went to the Safeway across the street, the one I shop at for her every week to get groceries and whatever else she needs, to get her some baby aspirin and find myself a Gatorade. While I was looking around, trying to find a cold one, I noticed the olive bar. You fill up a container with olives and then you wait at the register. So I got myself a container of olives and peppers and went walking off to the register. The deli manager, who I've talked to 100 times at this store, mind you, yells to me, "You need us to label that so you can pay." They haven't ever done this, so I asked her, "When did that start?" "It's always been like that. Bring it over." "No, it hasn't. I've always waited at the register." "What's the code for them? If you've done it at the register before, you'll know the code." I leave it up to the cashier. Then I started walking to the register. She then yells at me, "This is why we have to raise prices. People like you." So I said some things I'm not proud of. I'll paraphrase here. I walked up to the deli counter and asked her directly, "Are you accusing me of trying to steal olives?" "I didn't accuse you of anything." "Oh, good. Because for a minute there, I thought you were being a profiling jerk and accusing me of stealing $2 worth of olives when I spend around $1,000 a month in this store." And when I went to walk away, she said something under her breath and stared at me while I walked away, then shouted, "Next time, just pay for them." So I turned around and called her everything I had boiling up and told her to call the cops and I'll stand right here with the olives I'm trying so hard to steal. And then I said, "Don't worry, I can wait a minute for your big self to get around here to detain me since I'm such a criminal." She then waddled off into the back office and I went off to find the floor manager and told him what happened. Then he looked upset and went off to go find her. I set the crap down and just left because I wasn't about to give them any business. Anyway, am I the jerk? Edit. The manager of the store agreed that the store policy is to weigh the olives at the checkout, and he also apologized and stomped off towards the deli after I told him who the worker was that did that. So anyone questioning policy, hopefully that clears things up. How is anyone excusing this absolute tantrum? You're the jerk. You're a grown man. If an employee of the store states that policy is to get a sticker at the deli, get a sticker. Insulting her like that was so unnecessarily cruel. Her job is to make sure you pay for the olives, and even if she was rude about it, I doubt that was the case. No one deserves the kind of insults you used. PSA. If you're posting something like, "Am I the jerk for going off on this worker or stranger, etc., it's probably going to be that you're the jerk. Yeah, sometimes they did something to provoke you and you may feel like you have a leg to stand on, but you're just a jerk if you choose to escalate the situation and lay into people. You can always just walk away. Exactly. Yelling is so rarely necessary or justified. I wonder what universe y'all are living in. An employee insinuates you're stealing while you haven't even left the store, yells at you, and OP is expected to shrug it off? The employee deserved every word OP said. Unnecessarily cruel? The manager even confirmed it was checkout at the counter. So the employee was the real jerk here. Probably will get downvoted for this, but I don't care. I'd never let myself be treated the way that OP was. No, they did not deserve the personal insults. Asking her to call the manager to confirm or dismiss the process? Sure. Starting to hurl personal insults and yell? No. You're the jerk. It's people like you that make it extra rough for those working in customer service, such as the food sector. There's a shortage of workers, and since you didn't feel the need to have your stuff weighed because it wasn't your normal protocol, you had to unleash your word filth onto that employee. Not the jerk. This is a little something I like to call, she messed around and found out. Excuse me, but if you accuse me of stealing without proof, I will do whatever it takes to cause you to lose your job. But before that, I will do everything I can to ruin your day. To all these people complaining about your hurtful words, do you idiots think it doesn't hurt to be accused of stealing? Hopefully this jerk will learn to treat customers with respect now. Thanks for being a good person, not being a doormat, and putting this Karen in her place. It's about time someone taught her a lesson. By the way, if the roles were reversed, everyone would be siding with you. The only reason they're all excusing how she acted is because you're a dude. Karen cheated on me with her cousin. Now she's demanding to move back into my apartment and to bring him with her. So I, 21 male, have an ex, Angelica, 20 female. Angelica and I had an on and off relationship since we were about 15, but we got serious when lockdown hit and I had to move back to my hometown. We got an apartment together, and very soon after, she started spending a lot of time with her cousin. Long story short, she's been hooking up with him. We break up. We've been broken up for 9 months at this point. For 7 of those months, her phone has been on my phone bill, and she owes me over $500. Fine, whatever. I'll never see that $500, and she always makes excuses to pay me back. That's life. My own fault for letting her keep using me as a cash cow. She also took my car when we broke up, and I let her because I was too afraid she would try to take my apartment too. Anyway, it's 9 months past our breakup. I get a message. Hey, I'm pregnant. I'm on my way home from work, so I don't respond. That's 9 months past being my problem. It's not my baby. She messages me again. My boyfriend, the one she cheated on me with, and I have nowhere to stay. Still, 9 months past my problem. Angelica has never worked a day in her life. She lives off the disability check from her boyfriend and spends 99% of it on grass and fast food. She never paid rent and is documented to never pay rent. Anyway, she tells me, my name is still on the lease. We're going to move in September. I tell her, your name is not on the lease. It was renewed last month and I took your name off. I'm sorry. She messages me, calling me a jerk and saying she's moving in because she has nowhere for her baby and 3 dogs to stay. Mind you, my apartment is more like a studio and barely fits me, let alone 2 other people and 3 dogs. I tell her it's not happening. I'm moving out of town soon anyway. Also, come pick up her crap that she left at my apartment for 9 months. She says no, and if I throw it away, she's going to press charges. I tell her it doesn't matter, because when I move out, I'm throwing it away. She later called my landlord and told him I was planning to move out. I got upset at this and told her I ran the numbers on the car. It's still in my name. Get the car out of my name now, or I'm repossessing it, or she can leave me alone. She started bawling on a call, asking how I could do this to her and her unborn kid, and I was condemning her and her kid to be homeless. I'm really considering repossessing the car since it was mine from the start, and it still is in my name. She doesn't deserve to get a free car handed to her. She needs to wake up. She keeps saying she needs a place to stay. I'm ruining her and her baby's life. It's literally my apartment that she has never once paid rent on. I don't know how she thinks she's entitled to just live in my apartment with the guy she cheated on me with and 3 dogs. I hope the baby ends up okay. It's not its fault its mother is a spoiled brat, but I also hope being homeless and carless wakes her up. Karen wrote an angry, embellished review about me because her son had an allergic reaction. This incident happened last week, but I just found out today that she wrote an exaggerated review about me, my manager's words. It was an 8-top table, and I had seen to them for their entire meal. At the end, I asked if they were celebrating a birthday because I saw flowers, and they said yes, to which I offered our free birthday dessert. Anyone on the dessert menu, free of charge. That's how our restaurant operates. So they order a dessert along with 2 scoops of what we call hula pie ice cream, which is vanilla with fudge and macadamia nuts for the kids. I read it back to them and then ring it up. Several minutes later, I check in and the daughter says she doesn't like it, so I offer vanilla plain instead. This is where it got frustrating. The mom turns to me and says, "Vanilla is what we had ordered in the first place." I tell her, actually, I was told hula, but I can grab vanilla now for her, no problem. The mom then asks if there's nuts in the hula ice cream because the son is allergic and he's having a reaction. I say yes there is, so the grandparents rush him out across the street to the pharmacy. The mom says it doesn't matter anymore and not to get the vanilla for her daughter. I go tell my manager the situation, and when I come back, they're all leaving except one guy. I hand him the bill and, because I'm upset that they're making it out to be my fault, I tell the guy, "In the future, please let your server know if there's an allergy, especially one this severe. That way we can avoid this and any cross-contamination." He says he understands and he heads out. Today, I learned that the mom wrote a review saying I knew about the nut allergy and that she definitely ordered vanilla. No, I read it back to her. I'm so frustrated. Like I could have been fired if my managers didn't believe me. Take responsibility for your kids' health and make sure you let the restaurant establishment know if they have an allergy. Some review sites allow for responses. If so, your manager should make a reply and confirm that this is not the case at all. There should absolutely be a response from management if she mentioned you by name in the review. Am I the jerk for trying to get back into my kids' lives? I, 28 female, have 3 kids with my ex, 30 male. We were never married, but we dated while I was in college. My senior year, I got pregnant and had twins, both boys. He moved me in with him and we were raising our kids together. 14 months after giving birth to the boys, I had a girl. Immediately after, I had postpartum depression. I wasn't doing well and I decided to go back home to my parents to try to clear my head. Once home, I saw my old bedroom, my old things, and was kind of reminded of what I always wanted to do. I always wanted to take a gap year to travel, but I had gotten a scholarship to my first choice school and it seemed silly to pass it up. I decided then this is what I needed to get in the right mental state. I called BD and told him I'm going to Europe for a couple months. He was incensed and tried to talk me out of it. I explained this is what I needed to go back to being myself and to be a better parent and partner. So I went. He called me the first couple of months and kept asking if I was coming back. Eventually, he stopped calling. About 6 months in, my parents told me that he had filed to get full custody of the kids. I was mad he didn't tell me before doing it, but I thought I'd at least take full advantage and really see the world and get it out of my system. I traveled for a little over 2 years and visited every continent. When I was done, I really wanted to see my kids, but I felt guilty for not being present in their lives and I didn't want to face my ex. One of the friends I made in my travels offered me a gig as an English teacher in a private school in Thailand. I took the opportunity and spent the next 3 years doing that. This year, I returned stateside and I stayed with my parents. They showed me pictures of the kids and told me my ex let them see the kids a couple of times. I got in touch with him, telling him I was ready to be involved in their lives, and he flat out refused. I threatened to sue for custody, and he just replied, "Good luck with that," and sent me pictures of me partying in Europe. They are not flattering. My parents want to see their grandkids more, but they tell me it's all my fault for not being able to see them. Am I the jerk for trying to see them? Top comment. Reddit, it's my time to shine. Had to make a brand new account to not reveal anything personal. I know exactly who this person is. I know the kids and the dad. Those kids were raised by a wolf pack. When she left them, basically anyone and everyone who had a passing relation to the dad stepped up. His mom moved in for the first year to help with the babies. Neighbors, friends, and relatives all donated or bought kids stuff for them. Clothes, diapers, toys, anything he needed. One of his friends manages a restaurant and he brought them unused food almost every night. I work at the bank, so I had nothing useful to contribute other than money and time. One of our buddies runs an MMA gym and he has a kids class that starts after school, so he takes them in after school until their dad gets off work. Whenever the kids need a babysitter, 2 or 3 rowdy men show up ready to be horsies or punching bags for the boys and tea party guests for the girl. One of our other friends is a lawyer. He helped him gain full custody and advised him through the process. OP's parents are rich and they always offer money to help. On the advice of our lawyer friend, he always refuses. That way, they can't use that in any future custody battle. He didn't even let them introduce themselves as their grandparents, so they can't claim a relationship. Their dad is doing well now. Those kids don't want for anything. Every Sunday night, he hosts us to watch football or hang out with the kids. His daughter delights in serving everyone wheat juice. They're so much better off without this jerk. I can understand needing a break, but a couple months in Europe is already pretty excessive when you're leaving 3 kids. But to then hear at 6 months that her ex is going for custody and her response is to YOLO it for a 5 or 6 year adventure? There cannot be any possible way she rationally expected to be back in the kids' lives, especially if she contests it now and has it on record that she was spending much of it partying in an unflattering way. If the second OP is legit, at least the kids don't seem to have missed out on much. Am I the jerk for telling my stepdaughter her friend's mom is the reason her dad and I are divorcing? My husband, Jack, has been spending a lot of time with our neighbor, Sophie. It's worth noting that Jack and Sophie had an affair when she was 19. He was with his ex, and she was with an ex-boyfriend at the time. Sophie is a widow as her husband passed in 2021. Jack and I also married in 2021. Jack and Sophie remained friendly after their affair, partly because their daughters were and still are friends. They've been best friends since primary school. Jack and I have been having some issues in our marriage, and we've been going to counseling for the past 6 months. I brought up in counseling that his friendship with Sophie makes me uncomfortable because he has previously had an affair with her. Jack argued that she's just a friend and that neither of them have those feelings anymore, nor is Sophie interested in having a romantic relationship because no one compares to her late husband. That's apparently something she has said to him after he suggested setting her up on a date with a younger coworker who had expressed an interest in her. There's a lot of crossover between her job and his, which is part of the reason they remained close. In our last session, Jack admitted that he had been going to Sophie for her advice. He's been going to her to get advice about our relationship, as well as an issue with his daughter. The issue with his daughter, I understand, because it's something that Sophie has experience with, and she had a unique perspective that really did help him. The fact that they've been discussing our relationship, I don't feel comfortable with that. Jack has been really dismissive about it, arguing that it's the same as me going to my sister for advice. It's not the same. He had an affair with this woman. I recently saw Sophie in the local coffee shop, and she was friendly with me, asking how I was doing and if my stepdaughter was doing better. I asked her if something was going on between her and Jack. She denied that anything was going on between her and Jack. I asked her to stop giving Jack advice because it's damaging our relationship. Sophie said that she wasn't going to stop giving her friend advice and that it wasn't her fault that I was insecure in my relationship, but that she doesn't see Jack as anything more than a friend, despite what I think. Sophie reiterated several times that she was just friends with Jack and that she isn't that troubled teenager who had an affair with a married man anymore, and that she didn't want to implode her life again. When I got home, I told Jack that I didn't want him to see Sophie anymore. Jack argued with me, saying he wasn't going to stop seeing Sophie when nothing is going on between them. He offered to show me his texts with her, but I told him that I didn't trust him not to delete any text that he knew would upset me. Jack got frustrated and told me I was being ridiculous by accusing him of being deceitful. When his daughter came home, she was upset because Sophie had texted her daughter after our conversation and told her to come straight home as she didn't want her daughter to get pulled into what is going on between Jack and I like she had been. His daughter was angry and accused me of ruining her friendship before storming up to her bedroom, so Jack is also angry with me about it. I'm just not sure what else to do. Is there anything I can do? The fact he's constantly going to a woman he had an affair with for advice is just making me feel uncomfortable, and nothing he does feels reassuring. Update. We were meant to go to a counseling session this morning. However, Jack has canceled the session and any further sessions. Jack does not want to continue counseling as he has filed for divorce. He said it was something he had been considering for a while. Apparently, when he had gone to talk to Sophie the first time, it was to get her recommendation for a divorce lawyer, but she had tried to convince him that we just needed to work on our issues. Jack said that he had told her that he had lost trust in me and nothing we did was fixing it. The way I've been acting over him and Sophie also cemented that to him. She gave him the name of a friend who is a divorce lawyer, but told him that he was making a mistake. It turns out that when Sophie's daughter didn't come to our house as planned after school, it was because Jack had told Sophie he had planned to tell me about the divorce that evening. He backed out on telling me after his daughter came home upset, not wanting to rock the boat with her. My conversation with Sophie was just the excuse she used. If I'm honest, I still don't trust that nothing has been going on between them. The whole thing between them is weird, but my marriage is over, so what they do isn't my problem. I'm not going to fight to be with someone who lies to my face and states that they don't trust me. Update. Jack and I are getting divorced after 2 years of marriage. Jack has 2 kids, but this concerns his daughter, Ella, who's 15. The day Jack told me he wanted a divorce, we told the kids after school. Ella was upset when she found out we're getting divorced, and she went to her room. She came down after tea when it was just me and her in the house. Jack and his son had gone out. She asked me why her dad and I were getting divorced and wanted to know if it was because of her. I told Ella that she and her brother are not the reason for the divorce, but that her best friend's mom, Sophie, who's 34, is. Sophie and Jack had an affair when she was 19. When the affair was exposed, Sophie's life basically imploded, while Jack's pretty much remained the same. Just to state, I told Ella that Jack's continued friendship with Sophie and the running to her for advice is why we're getting divorced. Ella asked if Jack was having an affair again with Sophie. I told her that Jack was denying having an affair with Sophie again, but I suspected it. She asked what I meant by again, so I told her that Sophie and Jack had an affair when Jack was married to her mom. Ella has not been speaking to Jack since our conversation. She has also lashed out at her friend, even calling her mom names and saying that she's the reason our family is falling apart. They got into a physical fight, which resulted in both Jack and Sophie getting called into school to talk about it. In the meeting, Ella told them everything I had told her the night before and blamed Sophie for ruining her family again. Jack told her that Sophie isn't the reason. Jack told Ella the reason for the divorce is because he no longer trusts me because of a mistake I had made, which sent us to therapy. Months of therapy weren't able to repair his trust in me. After Jack and Ella came home, she's now not talking to me either. Jack is furious that I said anything to Ella and that I ruined Ella's friendship with her friend. Jack snapped that it was not my place to say anything to Ella. He was angry that I was still stuck on his friendship with Sophie and continues to maintain nothing is going on. He told me that Sophie's friend said in the meeting that she now wants to move to a new school where no one knows her mom is certain names that she was called and that it was my fault. Am I the jerk? Ella asked me for a reason and I told her. I do believe Sophie is the true reason as the relationship between them is weird. Update. This blew up way more than I thought it would. Both Ella and her brother were aware of the kiss. They were there when Jack was told. I referred to it as a mistake, as that's what Jack refers to it as. He said that he didn't consider the kiss to be cheating because I was drunk. I've moved out of the house since I made this post, and I'm now staying with my sister until I find a place of my own. On the weekend, Ella reached out to her friend and apologized for lashing out at her at school. They look like they've made up, as Ella is staying over at her house this weekend. Before she left, I apologized to Ella and told her that I shouldn't have dragged her into this. Ella told me that she would never forgive me, especially for damaging her friendship, and is glad that her dad is divorcing me. I offered to pay for the girls to do something together, but Ella refused, saying she didn't want to take my dirty money. I also apologized to Jack, who told me it was Sophie who needed the apology, not him, as it was her life I had tried to ruin without a shred of evidence. I tried telling him that I just didn't believe that he and Sophie weren't having an affair, and he snapped, telling me there's nothing going on with Sophie, and she had actually started seeing someone. He found out about this because she went to him for advice, as he's the only person she knows who has also lost a spouse and dated again. He then told me that he wanted me to move out, as Ella had told him that she wasn't going to return home while I was still there. So yeah, I've destroyed my relationship with Jack and his kids because I was insecure. It's my own doing. I'm the jerk. OP really left out that bit about her kissing another man as long as possible. Wow. Only people I feel bad for are the kids. OP obviously is terrible, but I got so many icks from Jack's whole relationship, both former and current, with Sophie. She was 19 when they had the affair. Am I the jerk for overstepping and embarrassing my boyfriend's cousin at her birthday party? I, 21 female, have been dating my boyfriend, Ben, who's 22, for 3 years now. Ben and his cousin Rachel, who's 20, are extremely close. Their moms are sisters and both single moms, so they were practically raised together. Ben usually treats her like his little sister and is very protective of her, but they're also just best friends and do everything together. I've known Rachel for years as we went to high school together, but we were never in the same circle of friends until I started dating Ben, which is when my best friend, Jess, and I became part of their tight-knit group. Jess and Rachel didn't really get along in high school, but have since been able to become pretty good friends. Rachel and I aren't particularly close. I like her a lot and wish we were as close as she and Jess currently are, but she doesn't seem to like me very much. I know that because she's told me off several times. One time on vacation, she told me off after Ben and I had a little argument over where to eat dinner. Rachel told me I was being whiny and annoying. She's done this in front of their moms and constantly makes little remarks when we're with friends. Ben doesn't see much wrong with it because to him, she's treating me the way she would treat a sister, and he finds it endearing that she teases me the same way she does to him, which is what I try to believe as well. Last week, Ben threw Rachel a surprise birthday party. I helped him plan, and we both split the cost for anything we had to buy for it. I knew from Jess that Rachel had been talking to this guy who she really liked, so I thought it would be nice if I invited him as well as our friends. Fast forward, Rachel was surprised, and the party was going great. We were getting along pretty well, which made me happy. We were all drunk when the guy Rachel liked arrived with a friend. I greeted them at the door and walked with them over to Rachel in an attempt to kind of wingman for her. Rachel was talking to Jess, facing away from us, and as we got closer, we realized she's drunkenly telling Jess how much she likes the guy I invited and the friend he brought and doesn't know what to do, and then began comparing her hookups with both of them in great detail. Jess tried to get her to stop talking several times, but she was too drunk to realize, and I was frozen awkwardly as these two guys heard the entire thing. When Rachel finally turned around, she looked mortified. She went over to Ben and began telling him what had just happened. Rachel then asked him why he would even invite them, and he told her I must have invited them since he didn't. Before I could even get any words out, Rachel began going off on me, saying I embarrassed her and put her in an uncomfortable situation, and that now she wouldn't be able to enjoy her party amongst other things. I felt so bad that I couldn't get any words out and basically just let Rachel go off on me until Jess pulled me away. Jess told me she agreed that I embarrassed Rachel and it was crappy of me to not try and stop her. I explained myself, but she said it wasn't my place to invite them to begin with since I wasn't in the loop about Rachel's love life, and it would be best if I kicked them out and left as well, so I did. It's been a week since the party and Rachel hasn't spoken to me. Jess thinks I should apologize to Rachel for embarrassing her at the party. I feel bad about the whole situation, but I can't help but feel like it's unfair as I was only trying to bond with Rachel and I didn't intentionally embarrass her. I feel like I'm owed an apology as well since I basically helped plan and pay for the party and got kicked out before even being given an opportunity to be heard. Update. I read through some of the comments and realized just how much there was to the situation that I didn't think about. The following took place last night. 1. I reached out to Rachel and spoke with her. I sent her a long text explaining my side of the situation and tried to clarify what had happened. I didn't apologize, and I expressed my feelings regarding our relationship as well as the incident at the party. She was not very receptive and was not open to accepting responsibility over her own behavior. She said that I crossed a line and even said she believes I embarrassed her intentionally. She thinks I invited them knowing about her situation. Apparently, Jess was aware of that detail and invited them both in an attempt to humiliate her as payback for all the incidents we've had in the past, basically her mistreating me. 2. I spoke to Jess as well. I reached out to her and expressed how I felt regarding her kicking me out of the party that I was essentially co-hosting, as well as how I felt towards her basically throwing me under the bus and enabling the situation between Rachel and I to get worse. She was also not receptive. I was surprised by that since we've been best friends for years and never had any issues within our friendship. It was clear she was completely on Rachel's side, and not only that, but also apparently shares Rachel's dislike of me. I spoke to Ben about everything. I told him about this post. We read through some of the comments and we talked about the entire situation. He said he wanted to be aware of everything that was going on, so he was with me while I texted Rachel and listened to my conversation with Jess on the phone. He apologized to me for not intervening sooner, for not leaving the party with me, and also for not realizing that Rachel's behavior towards me was beyond sisterly teasing. He took full responsibility for not hearing me and not validating my concerns whenever I addressed them. He reassured me that he'll be speaking to Rachel about her behavior and setting firm boundaries, and promised to do whatever he can to make sure I feel comfortable and safe within our relationship, which was such a huge relief after everything that happened. There's something else that he shared with me yesterday too, which was honestly the one thing I was not expecting. Apparently, a few days ago, Ben, Rachel, and Jess were hanging out at Rachel's. He said Rachel didn't want to invite me and neither did Jess, and that he found it odd that they were verbalizing that to him. What he found the most odd, though, was Jess' behavior towards him. He said he felt uncomfortable and in the moment didn't want to assume she was flirting with him, but ended up leaving, and after witnessing our conversation, felt he should share this with me as he's starting to think there's potentially more to it. Moving on to today, literally a few hours ago, Ben came to see me and told me Rachel stopped by his place. He spoke with her and addressed everything he said he would. Her response to him was pretty much the same as her response to me. Shockingly enough though, she also told him she thinks he shouldn't even be dating me to begin with. Told him she's no longer going to pretend to support our relationship and that he'd make a much better match with Jess. She ended up confessing to him that Jess has developed some feelings for him, which is what brought them closer, and she's talked with Jess about how much better suited they'd be than Ben and I. He shut it down immediately and came straight over to tell me about it. We've decided that we're going to distance ourselves from the friend group and cut ties with Jess. He's already blocked her on everything. I didn't even ask him to, and left the group chat we all had together. I'm heartbroken to learn that my best friend would do something like this, but kind of starting to think she was never my best friend after all, though it still hurts to lose the only best friend I've ever had. I haven't spoken to her about this yet, and to be honest, I don't think I'm going to. I don't want to waste any more energy with such awful people. Ben's been extremely apologetic and feels bad about the role he inadvertently played in all of this, as well as the way Rachel has been treating me, which to me is a good sign and has been very relieving. He's an amazing guy, and I'm so happy to see that I was right in thinking that all the time. He also respects my decision to cut ties with Rachel and has agreed to discuss further what kind of boundaries we will be putting in place going forward in terms of the family dynamic. He even spoke with his mom about all of this after our talk to make sure she's in the loop regarding our boundaries as well as Rachel's behavior. She was very understanding about it, and they both even insisted on paying me back what I spent on the party, but I don't want to accept because their support is more than enough. Am I the jerk because I told my sister's boyfriend he isn't a member of our family? I'm 21, male. My sister, who's 17, has this boyfriend who is always around. He acts like he lives here. They've been dating for 2 years, so he's gotten really comfortable with our family and our house. My little brother, who's 14, is sick right now, and it's been really stressful. When I'm not at school, I'm either at the hospital with my 14-year-old brother or at home watching my 8-year-old brother. It's been a lot. This morning, I was in the kitchen making food to bring to my parents at the hospital. When who should walk in? My sister's boyfriend. He asks me if I wanted help cooking, and I said no. He doesn't even know how to cook. He then proceeds to just stand there in the kitchen getting in my way. I asked what he was doing, and he said he was waiting for me to be done. I asked why, and he said he was going to make something. I told him that maybe he should go to his house and use his kitchen then. He said he wasn't trying to bother me. I said that he is bothering me, and I'm sick of him always being here invading our space. I can't even relax in my own home the rare moments I get to myself, because he's always here. He said I wasn't being fair and that he's scared for my brother too, and I shouldn't take it out on him. I told him to shut up, that he has no idea what he's talking about, and to go home. Then he said it's important to stick together when there's a tragedy. I said, yeah, families stick together, but he isn't a member of our family, so let us have a day or two a week to ourselves and leave us alone once in a while. Then he left. My sister was angry when she came down 20 minutes later. She said I'm a mean, bitter jerk. She said I had no right to say that to her boyfriend, and he's her guest, so he can come over whenever he wants. I didn't want to fight with her, so I just said fine. Was I really being a jerk though? Why is this guy always here? Update. I did end up talking to my dad. He came home and spoke to my sister's boyfriend. He told the boyfriend he needs to not come over before 11 in the morning or be here after 7 at night. He also told the boyfriend he can't use our kitchen or let himself into the house. He needs to knock and be let in. And when he's hungry, he needs to go home to get food. My dad also put my brother's games in his room and told the boyfriend not to go into anyone's bedroom he hasn't been invited into. My sister was pretty upset about all of this, especially the rule saying he has to leave by 7 p.m. My dad asked her if he's been sleeping over, and she swore up and down he wasn't. I don't think that's true, but it doesn't matter. My sister's boyfriend was pretty embarrassed and apologized to my dad, saying he didn't realize he was being a nuisance. My dad said it was fine and gave him a hug. I told him I was sorry I snapped at him, and we hugged it out too. So I think everyone's good, and even though my sister is upset with me and my dad said she will be better off in the long run because if she wants to see her boyfriend outside those hours, she'll have to leave her room. You're the jerk. He was just chatting casually with you. I understand you're stressed, but he's also your sister's support person, and it's nice to see him trying to be there for you too. You kind of overreacted, but I guess it is understandable. But you're the jerk nevertheless. Not the jerk. Just because every day is totally excessive. If he was there often, I would understand, but absolutely every day shows that he's absolutely oblivious of your boundaries. I can't imagine coming back from the hospital after visiting your sick brother and never having the space to cry or let it out. Every day is just too much. Not the jerk. It's okay that he's comfortable, but he's crossing the line when he doesn't give you the space you need around the kitchen and such. Now, one thing to consider, since your sister's 17, I assume he's 17 as well. He's very immature still. Am I the jerk for making my husband a vegan dinner, even though he's completely against becoming one? I, 24 male, and my husband, 25 male, have been happily married for a little over a year now. We met through a mutual friend, and he learned very quickly that I'm vegan. About a year after we met and got closer, we started dating. He had no issues with me being vegan, but made it very clear that I couldn't force him into becoming one as well, which I respected. I haven't ever put him down for eating meat in front of me, as that's his choice. To each their own. We even served both vegan and meat-inclusive food at our wedding to accommodate both of our families. Up until now, everything was great. However, recently, I've been seeing a ton of vegan recipes on my Pinterest and decided I wanted to try making one for dinner. We don't usually end up getting to have fancy dinners at home as both of us work full-time, but I found some time today to cook something up. It was a recipe for pulled pork sandwiches, but the pork wasn't actually pork. Instead, it was jackfruit. He seemed a little stressed about work, but I showed him the surprise dinner, and that seemed to help his mood out. He ate it happily and even complimented my cooking. But when he asked me what was in it, and when I told him it was pulled pork sandwich with jackfruit as a meat alternative, he lashed out. He shouted, telling me that he made it clear he was staying a meat eater. I tried explaining that I wasn't trying to turn him into a vegan, but he had just walked away then. This happened a few hours back, and now he's refusing to talk to me. I feel like I might be the jerk for making him a vegan meal, even though he had made it extremely clear he wouldn't become one. Because even if it wasn't my intention to make him one, I still made a vegan dinner that passed off as one with meat in it. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit, this is a pretty commonly asked question, so I'll just clear it up. I didn't say it was pulled pork sandwich. All I had said was that I made some sandwiches for us. Nothing more and nothing less. I don't understand people like this who love food until finding out that it's vegan. You're not pushing veganism on him. You made a meal that you could eat and that he ended up enjoying. I don't see the issue. I don't eat dairy, so I use plant-based milks, butters, cheeses, etc. My husband doesn't care as long as it tastes good. I also make vegetarian and vegan meals at least once a week just to take a break from meat. As a big meat eater, he also doesn't care about that as long as it tastes good. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Eating a single vegan meal does not make you vegan. That's like saying that I'm a fitness enthusiast because I went to the gym once last year. Entitled coworker tried to hijack our wedding. Hey Reddit, was listening to a Bridezilla story and it reminded me of something that happened when my wife and I were planning our wedding in 1992. My wife is the anti-Karen, the anti-Bridezilla. Backstory. On our first date, she fanned out a stack of restaurant coupons and said, "Where do you want to take me?" We picked Pizza Hut. Her engagement ring is a heart-shaped amethyst with 2 little diamond chips. I bought it at Kmart. She cherishes it. Her wedding dress did not come from a bridal shop. It came from the Sears catalog. It's a very simple white and cream dress. Would not be out of place at an afternoon tea party. I bought my 3-piece navy pinstripe suit since I needed a suit anyway. We wore the same clothes, with different accessories, to a costume party as a 1920s gangster and his wife. We had the wedding at our church. Our pastor was the real deal. He blessed the rings, and when he handed them back to me, they were ice cold. We exchanged the old wedding vows. A couple of my buddies found out at the last minute that they could make it, and they showed up. After we said our vows, they pulled out swords and made an impromptu arch for us to walk under. My wife's friends were upset and started yelling, "Nobody told us to bring our swords." Yeah, major fantasy geeks on both sides of the aisle. 32 years together, 31 years married this October. Next anniversary, I'm going to take a page from my granddad and raise a toast to 5 years of wedded bliss. When my wife announced our engagement, one of her coworkers, not even a friend, apparently got wedding rabies. She was so happy and went over the top offering to help. My wife was doing the tiny amount of wedding planning that was needed as her maid of honor lived in New Jersey. We're in upstate New York and had 2 kids to look after. Coworker insisted that it wasn't fair to my wife that maid of honor wasn't doing the wedding planning. She kept trying to insert herself as the wedding planner. Nice of her to offer, but she wanted to arrange our wedding the way she wanted it. No, we did not want any of the nonsense she kept suggesting. Coworker, not knowing my wife well, of course had zero clue what our tastes were. My wife's maid of honor was already making custom silk flowers for us and the tables as a wedding present. I think Coworker was delusional enough to think that she could weasel her way into being maid of honor. My wife kept politely but firmly shutting her down. Last straw was when Coworker called me to tell me about the surprise bridal shower she was throwing for my wife so I could get her there. Oh no. First, my wife was already going to have a bridal shower at our house. Father-in-law and I went down to the fire hall and watched baseball. Second, my wife hates surprise parties. Third, my wife would never have picked that restaurant. An overpriced steakhouse is the absolute last restaurant we would ever pick. Fourth, who the heck was Coworker planning on inviting? She didn't know any of my wife's friends. Wife shut that down hard. She immediately called Coworker and told her off. No meltdown, no yelling, no screaming, no language or insults. Just pure anger, as hot and bright as a welder's torch. Cue tears from Coworker. Boo-hoo, I was just trying to help. Nope, denied. We joke that you need to keep my wife away from breakable objects when she's angry. Cities, mountain ranges, that kind of fragile stuff. Drama over, and the wedding happened. My fiance is demanding I sell my rental properties. 2 years ago, I, 36 male, proposed to my fiance, 30 female, and our wedding is going to be this coming summer. When we met, we both owned properties. She owned a pretty typical luxury townhouse, and I owned 2 properties in the inner city. We both agreed that when it was time to cohabitate, we'd live in her condo. I own an old 2 upstairs, 2 downstairs duplex in a neighborhood that butts right up against an old industrial area, which I was living in until we moved in together. And on the next block, I also own a 4,000 square foot concrete block industrial building. I got them as part of a screaming package deal about 12 years ago when you couldn't even give property away in that neighborhood. I now rent the duplex to a couple of families, and God, I hope they never leave me. Best renters ever. And I rent half of the factory building to a guy who does HVAC and the other half to some microbrewery hipsters. The value has gone way up since I've owned these places, and I'm making buku bucks on these rentals. I could lose my job tomorrow and not even blink. My fiance does not see it this way. Ever since we've moved in together, she's been pestering me to sell the places. It's been ramping up the closer we get to the wedding. I keep telling her that as long as I own these places, it's practically guaranteed third source of income, and it would be invaluable if either of us hit a rough patch job-wise. She couldn't see it that way though. All she sees is a potential big pile of liquid cash that can go towards our wedding, honeymoon, and upgrades to the living situation after. We had the biggest blow up yet about it last Saturday, and I kind of lost it. I'm a saver and she's a spender, and I said that to her in far less pleasant terms, and also mentioned the amount of credit card debt she has, and since then, things have been pretty frosty. Am I the jerk for refusing to sell my second income? Update. The conversation didn't happen until recently. Life got in the way. It started fine, but quickly went south and ended in a big fight that turned pretty petty by the end of it. She accused me of not trusting her. Fair. And I pointed out that her habits make it basically impossible to trust her with money anyway. Probably not my proudest moment. But I did again make it clear in no uncertain terms that the properties are staying in the LLC and I won't sell them, and that the financial decisions regarding them would be mine alone. I may have also had a few choice words about the princess for a day wedding she wanted. After a couple of weeks of avoiding each other and not talking, and me sleeping in the basement of the townhouse, I said I wanted to hit the pause button and leave for a while. She was upset but didn't say much. I loaded up my things and went to my parents' house and told them what happened. They told me I could stay as long as I need to. Somewhere near the end of April, I got a call from her dad out of the blue, demanding to know what was going on and why I'd broken things off. I tried to explain what had been going on, but he was the angry dad of an upset young woman, and I don't think much got through. That call ended with him calling me a scumbag and hanging up on me. I've only had a few properly long-term relationships end in my lifetime, but that's the first time I've had an angry father yell at me about it. There's been no contact since. I'm sad that just over 4 years of my life with someone went up in smoke like this, but that's the way it goes, I guess. My parents didn't seem very surprised when I showed up, so maybe I really was the last one to know what was going on, like so many Redditors were pointing out. For some good news, and also what reminded me to update my post, is that yesterday I bought another house, one for me to live in. A tiny little brick, post-war brick ranch house in an old subdivision about 20 minutes from my rentals. It needs work, but I'm looking forward to having a project to take my mind off of things. It's going to be strange living on my own again, but I think I'll manage. Yeah, that relationship was not going to last. They have incompatible views on finances, and neither of them were going to back down. They'd have ended up getting divorced pretty soon after the wedding. That argument wasn't going away or getting better. My in-laws started harassing me for destroying their family naming tradition. Plus update. Myself, 25 female, and my fiance, 27 male, have a 2-month-old son. We are overjoyed at being parents, but most of my in-laws are refusing to even see our baby because of a decision we made concerning his name. My in-laws have a tradition of giving the firstborn son of every generation the same name. Let's say it's Peter. This has been going on for about 7 generations already, and they're very serious about it. My fiance's eldest cousin was the latest person to be named Peter. Every one of his cousins has only had daughters so far, so our baby is the first son of his generation, and consequently should get the name. I have no problem with the name Peter, and would have been okay with naming my son that. Unfortunately, that was also the name of my uncle, who passed before I was born. I won't get into details, but it was horrible for my family. My father never got over losing his brother. My grandmother asked the family not to name any of our future kids Peter during her lifetime. My mother-in-law and father-in-law knew about this promise and at first seemed to not only be okay with us avoiding the name Peter, but also supportive of the one we chose. However, my grandmother sadly passed when I was 7 months pregnant. We traveled to her funeral. On our last days there, my in-laws called to offer me their condolences. Then my mother-in-law asked me if I was willing to think about the name Peter now. Suddenly, they were insistent that the name we chose was awful and we had to honor their tradition. According to them, they had only agreed to make an exception for us for my grandmother's sake and had no obligation to keep it now that she was gone. My family agrees that while it's true we don't have to avoid the name anymore, it still doesn't feel right to use it. My fiancé agrees with me as well, but his parents spent the last weeks of my pregnancy trying to convince us to change our minds about the name. When our baby was born and we named him what we wanted to, my in-laws were furious that we had broken a 7-generation-old family tradition. Some of them hadn't previously wanted to name their sons Peter, but did it anyway for the family's sake. They said our decision was selfish and that my family should have moved on by now. This truly has nothing to do with whether my family has moved on or not. It just felt like a betrayal to my grandmother and uncle's memories to even consider using the name. My father-in-law offered us $1,000 to change our son's name to Peter after he was born. That was 2 months ago, and neither of my fiancé's parents have met the baby or seen us since I was pregnant. Most of my in-laws are on their side, and this is causing a huge rift between my fiancé and his family. He assures me I'm fine, but I'm starting to feel really guilty about this. Am I the jerk? Also, middle names aren't used in my country. Most people get the maternal surname before the paternal one instead. Edit 2. It wasn't $1,000. We're in a different country, different currency. It's still a lot of money, but would probably translate to about $200 US. Update. About a week after my post, my fiancé's parents contacted us. They apologized for their behavior and begged to meet my son. They said they were ready to leave the naming debacle behind and truly wanted to be involved in their grandson's life. We were skeptical, but invited them over to meet the baby. The visit went well. They began coming over almost every day during the next 3 weeks. I noticed neither of them ever called my son by his name, but I didn't point it out. For the first time in months, things seemed good between my fiancé and his parents. One day, my fiancé was helping my father-in-law with something at our place, so my mother-in-law and I went to the park with my baby. Sometime later, I had to go to the bathroom, so I left him in the stroller with her. When I got back, she was sitting on a park bench, chatting with another woman who was cooing over my son. I went over there and introduced myself as my son's mom, and she said, "I thought his name was Peter." I didn't say a word, and neither did my mother-in-law. She followed me to the car, and we went back to my apartment. On the way there, I texted my fiancé about what had happened. The moment we got there, he kicked both of his parents out of our place. He had read my texts and confronted his father. Thankfully, my father-in-law is a terrible liar and confessed immediately. Apparently, both my in-laws only call my son Peter. That includes whenever they're talking about him, every time they introduce him to someone else, and even baby talking to him on the few occasions they were with him. Neither of them are embarrassed by this, and they both think that they're in the right. We're heartbroken, especially my fiancé. Not only because his parents can't let go of their pride, but also because the name we chose for our son means a lot to both of us. I blame myself for encouraging my fiancé to allow them near him. I was raised in a different city than all of my grandparents and always wished they could have been more involved in my life. Losing my grandmother didn't help. Pretty much every doubt I had only existed because I thought it would be important for my son to grow up with all of his grandparents around. But now, all my guilt is gone. If they can't respect my son enough to call him by his name, they don't deserve to be in his life. I hope they enjoyed the 3 weeks they had with their grandson, because that's all they're getting until they get their heads out of their backside. Final update. My son is now 5 months old, almost 6. We're still no contact with my fiancé's parents, who haven't seen us since May. We've both blocked them everywhere. His relatives who are on our side still are, and most of the ones who weren't haven't come around. If anything, they're even more upset now. I remember someone suggesting that my fiancé's family might stop using the name after we decided not to. Well, you were right. Last week, one of my fiancé's cousins announced she was pregnant with a boy. She included her baby's name in the announcement, and it's not Peter. What followed was a string of aggressive Instagram DMs from both mother-in-law and father-in-law. They both created accounts for the sole purpose of contacting me. I didn't see them until 2 days later. They sent me almost an hour's worth of voice messages about how I had ruined their family. They wished their son had never met me, that he had seen me for who I truly am, and that I had never gotten pregnant. Many of the messages ended with, "I hope you're happy now," as if they thought they were getting the last word, only to think of something else that they wanted to say. There was name-calling, an accusation of me cheating, and a persistent refusal to refer to my son as their grandchild. My fiancé and I listened to the messages together. He hadn't gotten any. As much as I tried to distance myself, I was in tears by the time it was all done. I still don't regret anything, especially after the stunt they pulled back in May, but I'm not completely free of the guilt yet. Not to mention their complete disregard for their grandson. I was already having an overwhelming week, and this just seemed like the final straw. I must have spent close to an hour sobbing in my fiancé's arms. Once I was calmer, he unblocked his parents just to scream at them for a while. I only heard his side of the conversation, but it was more than enough. He finished the call by saying he didn't want to hear from them again. We had a long talk afterwards. My fiancé opened up about the emotional blackmail by his family before and after my pregnancy. My in-laws were close to threatening him with anything they could if we didn't name our son Peter. I told him about my guilt and how awful I felt for putting him through this. We reassured each other, cried a bit more, and had a mostly pleasant evening with our baby. We contacted his cousin. The family's giving her crap for breaking the tradition again. They're being way less aggressive with her though, and I think many of my in-laws are finally learning to let it go. We're not expecting any apologies anytime soon, but we'll be glad if they do come through. Our wedding will be in September of 2024, and whoever doesn't give us a sincere apology until then is uninvited. My fiancé's parents are banned either way. We came to that decision together. My boyfriend asked me for $1,500 to buy a Halloween costume. Me, female 22, and my boyfriend, male 26, have been together for around 4 years. I recently was asked by him if he could get a personal loan under my name so that he could buy a Halloween costume. I'm feeling a bit unsure of how upset I should be or if I should even be upset about it. To explain his current situation, he currently has around $5,000 worth of debt and does not have a job and lives off payments from the government currently. When he originally asked, I got quite upset since for the last year his financial situation has continued to get worse, as I currently pay for his groceries and essentials, and without aid doesn't have basic essentials like toilet paper or soap, let alone food, and can only meet the payments of his rent at the moment. When he asked me for the loan, it was about $1,500, and he wanted to have me open a personal loan since no financial lenders would give him any more money than he currently has on loan. I don't know why I felt like it was my breaking point, but I just cried and told him he was childish for asking me for money to buy something so stupid, and haven't spoken to him for the last couple days. He asked me for money when he's already relying on me to buy his groceries and is in so much debt from buying video games and action figures, I'm struggling to figure out what to even do or say to him. The reason he wants to loan so much from me is for more of the same non-essential items that got him into debt in the first place. A custom-made Halloween costume seems like an outrageous thing to want to purchase in his current situation, but he doesn't see it as a big deal since in his words, "It's not a lot of money for you." And I think I just need advice on what approach might work to help him understand. No matter how much I've tried to explain the strain his dependence on me to support him with his basic needs has been when we don't live together, and despite me trying to suggest loan consolidation or a selected person to manage his funds on his behalf could benefit him, I feel like my approach isn't working. I would appreciate advice on what steps I can take or what approach I might be able to use instead in regards to talking to him and trying to resolve this issue in our relationship currently. Update. I'm sure most of you thought this was a dumb question to begin with and really tore through me, but for those who are kinder with their advice, I really appreciate it. I know I seem like an absolute idiot, but I think being with my boyfriend for so long, as well as since high school, made me feel extremely attached and like I wouldn't know what to do if he wasn't around, so in that way, I was definitely dependent on him. To clarify things, it was for a Spider-Man costume, and no, I did not give him the money. I spoke to him and he tried explaining that it was his cousin who forced him to ask me for the money, which I didn't believe and ended the relationship since a lot of your comments made me realize I have a seriously low standard for my dating pool and will have to reconsider my standards moving forward. I guess the reason I indulged this man for so long was because I felt pity for him in his situation. He lives off government disability payments due to having autism, ADHD, and severe clinical depression, and I think as we have progressed in our relationship, I slowly became his carer after his family moved away and had no one to take him to his appointments, especially after lockdown. I understand now that should have never been my job to pick up, and blurring those lines made me become financially and emotionally used as he had no one else to depend on. Anyways, I've broken up with my boyfriend. I'll try to listen to you guys and find someone who is more on my level of stability and self-reliance. Thank you for listening and giving me the wake-up call I needed to get out before I committed to marrying or having kids with him. New boss got the company in lots of trouble. I used to work for a big warehouse, but not as big as Amazon, for inventory management. From the first day, I noticed that our workflow is super slow due to old software used for the office and warehouse. Since I wanted to impress my boss and my coworkers, I used some of my free time to write a new web-based software that you can use on your phone. This was super convenient because it allowed my boss, the sales team, and others to literally work while going around the warehouse or while working from home. Even the warehouse staff was impressed since I asked them what they need to see when picking orders. This software was now the heart of the company, and during my time I worked there, it was used a lot and replaced our old software. Now, my old boss was about to retire, and together with the new boss, we all met in the warehouse, had cake, and got to know the new boss, who I'll call Eric. He was super nice to everyone, but the next day, he showed his true colors. He completely changed our workflow, requested useless stuff from the sales team, added shifts, morning, day, and night, to our warehouse workers, and got rid of stuff that we barely sell. Within weeks, we were all exhausted. 3 people quit. Then Eric came into my office and gave me my 2 weeks notice. I was actually shocked. His response was, "We have 3 IT guys. We don't need that many." On my last day at work, Eric came into my office, looked around, and said, "Please make sure to reset your computer and delete any personal data." Now, there's one thing Eric doesn't know. The software always checks for a local file on my computer. So if the software can't find that file or the checksum is wrong, it'll display an error and shut down. I asked him again, "You sure you want me to delete every personal file from this computer?" His reply was, "Yes, within the next hour." Cue malicious compliance. I made sure to delete the whole source code of my software, deleted some personal stuff, cleaned my mail folder, and shortly before I was about to leave, I pressed delete on file required for the software. As soon as I left the building, I saw people standing outside having a smoke. While I walked to my car, a warehouse worker told me that the whole warehouse is on pause due to some server issues. I made sure to leave as fast as possible. 1 hour later, Eric blew up my phone, demanding the source code for my software. I happily told him that, per contract, the software is my property. My old boss even wrote a contract, and that he won't get the source code. He demanded I come into the office and fix everything. "I'm sorry, I don't work for you anymore. You wanted me to delete all personal data. The key for my software is also my own file, so I had to delete that too." I heard from some of my friends there that Eric had to buy a license for the old software, and within 3 weeks, he was replaced by another boss. Am I the jerk for refusing to forgive a debt that will cost my sister a house? My mother passed about 2 months ago. She didn't leave behind much other than a paid-for house worth about $180,000 and a little money in the bank. Mom announced a couple of years ago that she intended to leave her house to my sister, Sarah, who takes care of her severely disabled son full-time. Mom said that she wanted to make sure they had a roof over their heads and the rest of her kids could make it on their own. Sarah does struggle a lot and has said many times that she wouldn't have been able to make it without Mom. When Mom passed, she had some bills outstanding, but her biggest debt was that she owed me $37,000. I had loaned her the money so that she could fix her plumbing and septic system, as well as making the house more handicap-friendly for Sarah and Jeremy. Mom had been paying me back every month. I have paperwork proving the money is owed. Here's the problem. If I file a claim against her estate, like any other creditor would do, my brother John, Mom's executor, will have no choice but to pay it. But to do so, he will have to sell the house since there isn't money in the estate to pay it any other way. Which means that Sarah and Jeremy will have to find a different place to live. I know Mom wanted Sarah to have the house. There's also the issue that Mom's will said Sarah got the house, but any money in the estate would be split evenly between the 4 of us. So technically, we think that means Sarah wouldn't actually get anything. John is talking to a lawyer to make sure he's reading that right. Sarah is also concerned that if she did get a large amount of money, John and I have both said we would give her whatever we got from the house if it does get sold, that it could interfere with the help she gets from the government. John and Sarah are both pushing me to not file a claim against the estate, but if I don't, then the loan basically goes away. Sarah has said that she will pay it back to me and would even sign a new loan. The problem is that I don't believe her. She's borrowed money before and never paid it back. Not because she doesn't want to, but because she can't afford to. She struggled with money living with mom, so it's going to be even worse for her without mom paying bills in the house as well. If I don't file a claim, I'll be out $37,000, and that's far more than I want to hand over as a gift, even to my sister. I've told John and Sarah that I am officially filing a claim on Monday morning. They're both calling me a greedy jerk and telling me that I'm ignoring what mom wanted. I think it's unreasonable to expect me to just forget $37,000. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk for a few reasons here. 1. You refuse to wait for your brother, the executor, to talk to an attorney, which is literally happening later in the week. 2. Several people have made outstanding points, like getting a new contract or a lien against the house. You absolutely will not hear out a single word of it, just repeatedly saying she will not pay and you'll never see the money. That's where contracts and liens come in. They're literally there to protect you. 3. You state you are quite financially stable right now and that you do not need this money right this second, but you're also unwilling to help find any workarounds for your sister and her multiple kids. You're happy to make her homeless. Am I the jerk for not paying for my stepdaughter's wedding? I, 49 male, will keep this as short as possible, but basically, my stepdaughter, who's 25, wants to marry her boyfriend who's also 25, which was fine and all. I had the money to pay for the wedding. What could possibly go wrong? Her father, who's 54, has never been in the picture her whole life. He was a deadbeat father. Never took care of his daughter, never paid child support according to my fiance anyway. My stepdaughter was never rude with me and always showed respect, so I always showed respect for her and bought all of her the necessities that she needed, maybe too much. Now looking back, I'm an ATM. What was I thinking? Anyway, since I'm paying for a $200,000 wedding, I just asked for my mother and her 2 step-siblings to receive invitations since they are her siblings. My fiance and daughter were like, cool, we will. Now obviously this could be a mistake, but invitations come around. My stepdaughter informed me that she didn't want any kids at her wedding, but that seemed odd to me because my fiance's sister's kids were invited, so why weren't her own siblings invited? I asked her, and she said it was just a mistake. Probably a red flag, but on we go. A few days later, my in-laws come over, and they start questioning my daughter-in-law about who's going to walk her down the aisle. My daughter announced that it was going to be her deadbeat clown of a father. My fiance was in shock from her announcement, and my daughter kept going on and on about how they had been in touch and the fact that he's her true father, and at that point, I just lost it. I announced that her real father can pay for the wedding then. He can't, since I'm a check for my stepdaughter, and my stepdaughter started screaming at me and all of the guests left the house. My fiance wasn't too happy, stating I humiliated her in front of her in-laws, and the fact they spent a year planning. I said that I wasted $200,000 on an ungrateful brat. I may be the jerk for this, and spewed insults towards her father. As you can tell, I really don't like the guy. So, am I the jerk for this? Edit. I just want to clarify a few things. My stepdaughter had told me that I would walk her down the aisle, then proceeded to lie and humiliate me in front of the guests. Also, a few people asked why I laughed it off. Whenever I'm in a bad situation, I just like to laugh it off, like Spider-Man, I guess. Not the jerk. I can't believe it. $200,000 for a wedding? Insane. And for her to use you and string you along lying like that? Oh no. Am I the jerk for getting upset with my fiance over his girl best friend affecting our wedding plans? My fiance and I are getting married next year. I've had my eyes set on an extremely competitive venue in October. There's only one available day for us that works for my family, and it happens to fall on his girl best friend's birthday. There are several reasons as to why I'm dead set on October. I've always dreamed of a fall wedding. September is difficult for me because it's when my brother passed, and November doesn't really work with our family's travel schedules. My issue is more with how my fiance approached this issue of his friend's birthday and the potential wedding date overlapping rather than him not wanting those on the same day. Instead of asking me if there's any way we can compromise, which really there isn't, but I'd appreciate it, he went off on me saying that it's Veronica's birthday and I know that, and that I can't be upset when he puts off celebrating our anniversary for her birthday. It felt like he was accusing me of purposefully plotting to stop them from celebrating together. This died down a bit, and then when I was talking about the guest meals, I spoke with the planner, and she suggested that, to help with costs, the bride and groom will be served fish. I'm pescatarian. along with select family members who are also pescatarian, and everyone else will be served chicken. I have all the fish eaters together so people don't get confused or offended by them being offered different, somewhat cheaper food. He then argued with me that Veronica loves fish and I should put her down for fish as well. I told him I didn't want guests to be upset at her getting fish while sitting with other guests and them not having the option. If it was dietary, it would be different, but he says no, Veronica is a picky eater and that's essentially the same as not eating chicken by choice for health and ethic reasons. It felt like I was walking on eggshells as we kept getting into fights about Veronica and our wedding. He told me that he was talking about our cake in a group chat of his, and she wanted him to suggest a different flavor combo to me, since she said a wedding she went to prior had the same and she didn't like it. I flipped out, just started screaming that it's our and my wedding, me and him, not hers. It's okay to have opinions, but hers literally do not matter this one singular time. He told me I was out of line and had a clear dislike for Veronica despite her trying to be helpful, and I'm bitter of their friendship. He left and hasn't told me where he's staying, and he won't be coming home until I admit fault and promise to be more accepting of his female friends. I honestly tried my best to be nice despite how rudely she treats me. She basically flat out ignores me. Our friends seem to not want to get involved. I expect them to have my back, and now I'm questioning if I'm crazy. And a jerk. Not the jerk. He's absolutely in love with her. End this relationship and get back what money you can. I don't know why he's not just with her, but you will never be more important than her, especially if he's willing to celebrate her birthday over your wedding anniversary. Girl, cut your losses, pack up and leave, or pack his stuff up and go no contact. He's using you and trying to control you, and you deserve better. My Karen stepdaughter is demanding my Lotto winnings. To give some context, my estranged stepdaughter is 22. My significant other and I haven't seen her in 9 years. When she was 11, a bunch of drama went down, all based on lies. We knew her mom was behind this because we had 50-50 custody, but had been paying her child support like we only had stepdaughter every other weekend. After we had a few kids, significant other applied, and she had to end up paying him child support. Fighting the court battles that proceeded cost almost 6 figures in legal fees over the next 2 years, and I had to end up selling my house, which was my great-grandparents'. Selling my house meant I wasn't able to care for my ailing father. At a therapy appointment, stepdaughter told my significant other she would keep telling lies if he kept trying to take her from her mom. So he said, okay, contact him when she wants to have a relationship. The mom got what she wanted, child support until stepdaughter was 18. We were all devastated. Significant other sent her birthday and Christmas presents, cards and texts, but they moved and we didn't know where and they changed their numbers. Fast forward to now. 5 months ago, I won the Lotto. Significant other and I aren't married and we have separate finances due to him being bad with money and me entering the relationship with more assets and then having to sell my house for stepdaughter's court battle. But I still take significant other's feelings into consideration with money. The money was a significant sum, but not rolling in money. Enough to put a good deposit on a house, deposits on cars, pay off debts, and put money into the kids' education, but still have mortgage, car payments, and bills. It's enough to set us up for life as long as we still work full-time. If we're smart with it, we might be able to retire early. We hadn't heard from stepdaughter or her mom in 9 years, apart from a message when a child support payment was 2 days late because significant other changed jobs. A week ago, stepdaughter reached out to significant other over text, a couple of pleasantry texts, and then she said she heard we won the Lotto and was surprised we hadn't contacted her yet to help provide for her. After a bit of awkward stepping around the topic, she brought it back up that she expects a deposit for a house for her and her mom. I said absolutely not. Not only would that be as much or more than what our own kids would get, but I've already wasted a whole house on her and almost lost my family and life. I don't want to give her a cent and I want nothing to do with her. I admit I still resent her and everything I had to sacrifice for her lies. My significant other agrees a house deposit is out of the question, but his mom and sister got angry at him and now he thinks maybe we should give her a little bit. It wouldn't break the bank, but why would I give someone I don't like money when it could be used on our family and those I love? My significant other's mom and sister are saying I'm a jerk for not giving my estranged stepdaughter money. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She wanted to tell lies to stay with her mom? Perfect. You are not part of her family, so you don't owe her anything. I'll still have my job long after you're gone, fool. I was working at a horrible postal station. Had a piece of rolling equipment get caught in a piece of broken tile and pop up, then onto my toe. Shattered the toenail. I was lucky not to have a broken toe from it, too. So I'm on light duty, which meant I had to work the service window where people come to pick up packages, signature required mail, fill out change of address and hold mail forms, stuff like that. Remember, I have a foot injury. This means that getting around is not easy for me. Have a customer come in about an hour before closing, hands over 2 pick up your mail forms for certified letters. Y'all probably don't realize this, but in big city facilities, we don't have your certified mail sitting in a gold case all by itself, and postal workers staring wistfully at it wondering when we'll see you. No, we have your mail sorted out by the last number of your street address in trays with hundreds of other certified letters just like yours. This means it can take a while to find your mail when you finally drag yourself in to pick it up. So I go looking for those 2 letters. It was a recent enough thing that I checked the stand-up cubby we had for the latest certified to pickups. Not there. So I hobbled to the longer-term storage area, about 10 feet from the door. I finally find both letters and go to the window. The customer tells me that he wants to talk to the postmaster because I took 3 minutes to get his mail, and that was unacceptable. I tried to convince him to get the party more likely to be on the premises to handle his complaint, a supervisor. But nope, he's adamant about speaking to the postmaster. Hint, people, the later in the day it is, the less likely the postmaster will be there. But okay, you want the postmaster? You get the postmaster. I smile and tell him, sure, I'll go get him now. And I shut the Dutch door, with his mail still in my hand. You thought 3 minutes was a long wait? Ha! You just activated a union worker trap card, bub. Now I did go to the postmaster's office first, but as usual, he wasn't in there. Still, I made a good faith effort to look there. I didn't see him on the floor either, so I checked the dock, conveniently getting in a smoke while I was out there. Nasty former habit. I checked the break room and got and drank a soda while I was there. Knocked on the men's room door. No answer. Oops, that soda just worked its way through me. Need to use the ladies now. I was about to check the parking lot to see if his car was even there. Oh look, there's the postmaster, coming back from an off-site meeting. I take the time to bring him up to speed on the customer's complaint. This guy knew me and smiled. How long have you been keeping him waiting now? I think it's been 20 to 25 minutes. You can deal with him while I handle the paperwork. This will be fun. You're lucky I like you because you're a hard worker though. The customer was absolutely livid when the door finally opened again. He demanded that I be fired right then and there, as if that's how it works in a union job. My boss, to his credit, chewed out the customer for being such a jerk to an injured employee who had actually done a great job in taking only 3 minutes to find 2 letters amongst hundreds in 2 separate locations. He even took one of the trays over to the ledge, slammed it down, and said, "See how long it would take you to go through this to find not 1, but 2 letters, and then tell me 3 minutes is too long." Lesson to be learned. Union workers don't have to take crap off of dirtbags, and we won't. So spare yourself a whole lot of grief and chill out. It's only mail for crying out loud. Karen's brats keep kicking my door. Huge mistake. For context, I, 18 female, live with my 2 siblings, my sister who's 22 and brother who's 24. Recently, new people moved in right next to us and they have kids. They were a bit loud, which was kind of annoying, but they were kids and kids tend to be loud. I didn't really have a problem with them until they started ding-dong ditching us. I don't even know if it could be considered ding-dong ditch because they literally just kick the door like they're trying to impersonate the FBI. They hang out in front of our house and do it every 10 to 20 minutes. Keep in mind, they kick hard. My sister was going to call the police in a fit of rage, but I told her no, because talking to their parents or calling the police might make it worse. I don't know the kid's situation at home. Confronting the parents might make it bad for them. But they keep doing it, more often and even kicking the door harder. There are literally dents and scuffs on the door now. I don't know how it's possible because they don't look like they're older than 10, and I'm seriously getting annoyed, and so are my siblings. They clearly don't see the security camera right in front of the door, so I know their intelligence is lacking, so I'm not gonna yell at them. So I wrote a note on a sign in front of the door, kindly asking them to stop because my siblings work from home and it's extremely distracting. But it keeps happening. They even ripped up our sign. So I can't take it anymore. I slipped on some socks and slippers and I went next door to talk to their parents. The mom said it's not that big of a deal. My door wasn't seriously damaged and that they're just kids and they're trying to have fun. and if it's that distracting, I should put on some headphones. But the last straw is when these kids messed with my package outside the door. They shook it and threw the box against the stairs. I snapped and decided to take screenshots of all the security footage of them being little menaces. I made a poster with their faces on it, the damage that they've done, and photo evidence of them being menaces. I typed out, "Neighbors, be on the lookout. Local doorstep gremlins may terrorize your front door," which I found funny at the time. I print it out and tape it all over the neighborhood. My other neighbor finds it hilarious because those kids have been doing the same thing to her, and she confronted the parents too, and the parent did absolutely nothing. But today, I got a giant knock on my door, and it wasn't the little snot-nosed brats, it was the mom. She called me all kinds of names for humiliating her kids. She said that her kids were crying and were now scared to go outside. She yells at me and drops pieces of the ripped-up poster on my doormat and walks away. Am I the jerk, or did these brats have it coming? Edit. 1. Why didn't I call the police in the first place? Well, because they couldn't do much more than give the "don't do this, don't do that" talk. The scuffs are dense, and they aren't even that bad. Ugly, but maybe a paint pen and some rice will fix it. Another reason I didn't call the police in the first place is because I didn't know the situation that they're in at home. Calling the cops could have enraged the parents and made things even worse. I don't know if their home life is troubled. But as soon as I saw that their mother acted like this, I saw a reason to humiliate them. I find that kids have a giant fear of being embarrassed and not coming off as cool as they seem to be. 2. What did I say to the mother? I just said that it was extremely distracting and disrespectful. I told her that there were dents and scuffs on the door, and I showed her the video evidence in the phone. I politely asked her to talk to them to tell them that this was affecting us in a negative way, and you already know the answer. 3. Will I call the police if it happens again? Yes and no. 911 is reserved for real emergencies, and I'm sure there's more serious problems than some neighborhood brats. Resources are plenty but thin. I don't want to take them up. If this does happen again, I won't call 911. I'll just file a complaint or call a non-emergency line. Not the jerk. Kids decided to play some stupid games and got some stupid prizes. What did they think was going to happen? Also, I'm sad their mom's allowing this. If she's like this now, I'd hate to imagine what she'll allow in the future once they're teens. Neighborhood justice was served. Good on you, and I hope they stop hitting your door completely. My wife admits that she cheated on me, but she says it doesn't count since we weren't married yet. I'm 25, male. She's 23, female. The time frame is important here. We've been married for 3 years. We were together as a couple for 2 years before that, so we've been together for about 5 years total. 2 weekends ago, her sister got married, and of course, my wife was in the wedding party. So, as you would expect, she spent the 2 weeks prior to the wedding helping her sister get everything ready. No big deal at all. She kept me informed, and I knew this was going to happen. She took that Wednesday through Friday off work to help her, and in fact stayed with her 3 days. I certainly know her sister, but I barely know the guy who is now my brother-in-law. In fact, I've only met him a few times, but he seems nice enough. I show up Saturday morning, and a few hours before the ceremony, in hopes of stealing just a few minutes to see her, not wanting to intrude on the day since I know that she's busy, but I hadn't seen her since Tuesday. She sees me outside of her parents' house and sends her brother out to tell me that she will come out and see me at the car, which I thought was odd, but whatever. She finally comes out and sits in the seat next to me and gives me a kiss, but instead of acting happy to see me or whatever, she tells me that she has to talk to me and she doesn't want it to ruin her sister's day. She informs me that at the reception, if I still want to go, I might hear some things about the best man in her, and she didn't want it to be awkward or weird. I just kind of sat there stunned. She said that about 4 years ago she had a fling with him and that it didn't mean anything, but she was aware that by nature I'm somewhat jealous, and she wanted me to know in advance so that if I heard something that I wouldn't be surprised. Again, I kind of just sat there. This was not how I thought my morning would go, but I told her I appreciated knowing it and that it certainly wasn't a big deal now. She went back in the house and I went to eat lunch and decided to meet her at the church. As I'm eating and reading my phone, it dawns on me. She said she had a fling with him 4 years ago and we've been together for 5. My first reaction was to blow it off and think that she just told me the wrong time frame. But the more I thought about it, the more I started to remember, after about 1.5 years of us being together, she had a phase where she was really sketchy about her behavior, wasn't available when she normally was, and went on 2 weekend camping trips that were with friends from work. Of course, I'm a little knotted over this, but I know I have a long day ahead of me. I go to the wedding and sit there watching everything. After the wedding, they have a line that you walk by and congratulate the bride and groom, and the wedding party is standing in line as well. My wife is standing with some other guy. I don't know him at all, but the best man was there, and I just went down the line and acted like no big deal. Got to the reception, and it takes forever for them to get there because of photos. She finally gets there and sits with me. I decided not to say anything as I didn't want to distract from the day, but instead of just letting it go, she then tells me that each of the groomsmen and bridesmaids are going to dance, and that she's going to be dancing with him. I ask why when she was not his partner for the party, and she said that the maid of honor and her partner were actually married and wanted to dance with each other. At this point, I'm a little more than perturbed, but I try and not let it show. Thankfully, I was smart enough to not drink because I freely admit I get angry when I drink, so I know when to stay away from it. She talks to everyone around her, and then the dance comes, and he comes over and extends his arm, and she gets up. I try not to watch, and in fact, I make it a point not to. She comes back with him in tow, and they're joking like the best of friends. She decides that it would be a good idea to introduce us, and while I didn't say to buzz off like I wanted to, my greeting to him was probably less than cordial. But it did not deter him from sitting and talking with her for a few minutes. The more they sat and talked and reminisced about old times and places, the madder I got. Eventually, I got up and went to the bathroom, and when I came back, he was gone. She decided to tell me that she thought I was rude, which was not what I was all about hearing at the moment. I told her that this wasn't the time nor place to talk about it, but rest assured we would talk later. She sat there and then said that she was going to change clothes, and as soon as she got back, she was telling her sister that we were leaving because I had ruined her day, but she didn't want me to ruin her sister's day as well. I told her that I was perfectly capable of not being a bother to her or her sister the rest of the day, and that I did not want to be the cause of any drama, so I would prefer to just stay. She went and changed clothes and then came back all in a huff. Now understand, I have not said a word to her. I even shook the other guy's hand. I guess I just looked miserable, so that's what she was basing all of this off of. She was adamant about not staying, and so I said that if she really wanted to go, we could go. But if she would rather stay, I would be happy to stay. Or if she would like, since I came in my own car, I could leave and she could stay. She at first said that we should stay, but then said if I couldn't act any better, I should leave. I asked how I was acting, and she said it was obvious I was trying to be a silverback gorilla wanting to fight. I didn't know whether to laugh or be offended. I went back in and sat down while she mingled with the other guests. I talked with her brother for a while, but then ultimately ended up back at our table talking with her grandma. We leave at the same time, and I arrived home just before she did. I was sitting in the living room waiting on her when she came in and did not beat around the bush. I simply asked her to retell me the story about the other guy, and she said it word for word like before. After sitting and looking at her for a minute, I just said, "Are you sure about the time frame?" And she said she was. I then reminded her that we had been together for 5 years, so this fling was well over a year into us being together. What happened next, I can't really put into words. Instead of being flustered or denying or anything, she simply said, "I know." So I asked her to explain, and she tells me that they worked together and that it was just a physical thing, and she felt like we weren't in a great place at the time, and that she never had any feelings for him and never had any real intentions of leaving me. She just was having some fun for a few weekends. She said that it was probably a mistake on her part to tell me now, but she didn't want me to get blindsided. I did not take this the way that she thought I would, I guess. We had a very large argument, and it ended when she told me I was being childish about all of this. That we were married, and this happened way before that, and our life together now has nothing to do with him or that time. Well, 2 things. 1, I adamantly disagree about this has no bearings on us. She cheated on me and doesn't even have the decency to feel guilty about it. 2, I hate being told that I'm being childish when I'm upset over something. It upsets me to no end because that's her way of acting superior to me. I told her I needed time to think, and she told me there was nothing to think about. We loved each other, and this didn't change anything. That was 2 weeks ago, and I'm still not over it. She's been trying the past few days to get me to talk to her, but I admit that for whatever reason, I'm not viewing her the same as I did before this. Part of me is like, this is stupid. It happened a few years ago, and we're married now, and there haven't been any problems at all. But then part of me is like, I just found out she cheated on me, and it really hurts. And what makes it worse is that instead of trying to understand how I feel, she's trying to guilt me into just not even thinking about it. I don't know what to do. Update. First, I want to clarify something from my first post. The maid of honor, not my wife, was married to the groomsman whom my wife walked down the aisle with. There were some other people who felt my wife was trying to arrange the dance, but I do know for a fact that this part was legit. To be blunt, I'm in limbo. There have been developments, but all they've done is made it harder for me to decide. Last week I was mostly angry, then as the weekend progressed I became mostly sad. I still love her, and this is ripping me apart. Here's what's happened so far. She finally came to the realization that I was not going to just get over this. This then brought her to the realization that I might want out of the marriage. This then brought a near nervous breakdown from her. Many of you stated that she would try and manipulate me like that, and believe me, I was taking those words to heart when I thought she was having crocodile tears. But it soon became apparent to me that she wasn't acting or faking. She was having a legit panic attack. This led to an ER visit, and that led to an overnight stay in the hospital, and then to new medications and a scheduled follow-up with her doctor for later this week. This brought her family into it, and that in turn led to long conversations all the way around. When we got home, with her family in tow, I asked what she wanted to do since there was a house full of people, and she said she wanted to be with her mom for a while. That was fine with me, as I had no desire to hang around all day with her dad or sister, so I said I was going to finish up something at work and would be home later. 2 hours after I get there, I get a text from her begging me to please come home and that she really needs me to talk with her. So I finish up what I was doing and I head home. I'm greeted on my own front porch by her dad, who asks if he can talk to me for a minute. My anger level was already somewhat high, but I was ready to go to war if she had lied to him about me. I mean, it's not like he and I are best friends or anything, but I've never had a bad moment with him, so I really wasn't going to be happy about being the jerk who broke his baby's heart. We sat on our deck chairs, and he floored me with what he said. I was expecting to hear anything but what he said. He said that she had told them what had happened, and that he wanted to apologize to me, because he said that he felt like he did a really bad job as a parent, and that this mindset that she had was really a creation of her mother's, and that while he loved both of them, he said they were wrong, and he told his wife years ago that telling the girls that whatever happens before marriage doesn't count was a horrible idea and value system to install in them. He then said that he wasn't there to stand up for what his daughter did, but he just wanted me to be aware that what she was saying and how she was acting was simply because she honestly believed that being married was an entirely different life, and that they, mom and dad, had romanticized marriage to the point that she wasn't understanding real life. Basically, he was kind of throwing his wife under the bus. But again, this is not what I was expecting at all. We shook hands, and he said that no matter what I decided, he still thought very highly of me, which honestly made me feel really good for that moment. I then went inside, and my wife is curled up in a ball on her mom's lap, and you can tell she's been crying the entire time I've been gone. Mom gets up and comes and hugs me and tells me she's sorry and that she loves me, and she's praying that we can work this out. My wife is laid out on the couch at this point. Her mom and dad leave, and she sits there looking at me and crying. Okay, this is where I'm going to upset everybody and just tell you that I couldn't take it. I went to her and we hugged for a long time, but with her telling me over and over how sorry she was. Hey, I know it was the weak thing to do, but again, I have to say in my defense that just before this incident occurred, I loved her with all of my heart and would have done anything to not see her in pain. Whatever she had done, I still didn't want to see her like that. Look, it's very possible that she was putting on an Oscar-worthy acting job, but I don't honestly think so. She really seemed broken at this point in time. After a while, when she calmed down, I asked her what she wanted me to come home and talk about, and she said she wanted to get everything out in the open so I didn't feel like I was being lied to or manipulated. So she wanted me to ask her questions, and I wish I had written down a list, but I came up with a few off the top of my head. She was brutally honest with me, and some of the questions I asked I probably shouldn't have, because now the mental image is stuck in there. But honestly, it was there anyway. I just now have confirmation. First, I asked for dates, or at the very least, approximate dates. I didn't tell her about the engagement concern I had because I didn't want her to change stories, and then remembered exactly when they occurred. Fortunately, this happened a little earlier in our relationship than she told me initially, and so we were not engaged when this happened. I can't tell you what a relief that was, because I became physically ill when I had thought about that previously. Second, I asked how many times. She went overboard with this because instead of just telling me how many different dates, she decided to tell me how many times they actually hooked up. She wasn't doing it to be mean. She honestly thought this is what I wanted to know. This part of the conversation did not help me at all, and in fact, almost broke me down. In truth, it wasn't that often, and in fact, there were really only 3 different days it happened on, but there were several times during those 3 days. Then came the hard part. Why did she do it? Okay, again, I'm not the most manly of men, and I'm ashamed to admit this, but I couldn't get this out without starting to cry. I asked, why wasn't I good enough? Why him? Why didn't she just leave me? It was her turn to hold me because at this point, everything came rushing at me. Her telling me having to watch them laugh with each other, her now telling me how many times they did this and where it happened. She talked during this, but to this moment, I have no idea what she said. I was too upset, and honestly, nothing she was going to say was going to make a bit of difference anyway. But after I composed myself, I simply told her that the betrayal was horrible, but honestly, her response to me when I found out was just as bad, if not worse. She agreed with me, and she apologized for calling me immature. She said that she honestly believed that it wouldn't matter to me now because we were married. When she said this, my blood started to boil again. I started to say something about it, but she jumped in and said that after talking with her parents, she now sees that this was very wrong of her and that cheating is still cheating. But she still feels that our happiness we've shared since being married should count for something. I then replied that I kind of felt like that happiness was built on a lie. This led to another breakdown on her part and almost another ER visit. But with meds and having her breathe into a paper bag, we got her to calm down. I let her sleep for the rest of the night, feeling like emotionally we were both tired, but come Sunday, we were talking again. By this time, I wasn't as sympathetic as I had been when I got home from the ER. I told her that I thought her introducing him to me was crappy. Me having to watch her dance with him was extra crappy, and the fact that she only told me because she was going to get caught was an elite level of crappy. Which then I demanded to know, why did she think I would find out, and how many of these people at the wedding knew besides me? Well, obviously the guy knew, but then his best friend in the world also knew. Did I mention that jerk is now my brother-in-law? Which then led to her sister finding out, and she was afraid her sister was going to be the one to tell me. I asked how often she sees this guy, and she said that the wedding is the first time she's seen him in 3 years. Then I lost it and asked her if they hooked up during any of the lead up to the wedding. She got all upset about it, acting like of course that wouldn't happen because she's married now, and I just lost it and had to leave for a while because once again, I felt like she was living on married planet and the world there is a different place than for the rest of us. I finally cooled off enough to come home and try to be civil about things. She finally asked me what she could do to help me get past all of this, which may not sound like much, but it was the first time she offered to help me, really, so it was at least a nice gesture. I told her I wasn't sure what she could do, or if there was anything either of us could do, and that I may never get over this. She said that she wanted to help because she didn't want to see me in pain, and that over the years, she hopes I'll be able to judge her based on who she is now. She would do anything I wanted to work this out. She also wanted to be sure that I knew that she has been 100% faithful since we've been married and would never cheat on her vows. I sarcastically thanked her, which I admit wasn't the most mature thing to do. I then asked for a moratorium from further talks until at least Wednesday. I have 2 projects I have to get done, and honestly, I'm just exhausted. And no, I have no clue what I want to do. I shift between periods of red-hot anger where I want to kick her out, and then periods of deep emotional turmoil where I want to just forget this and move on with her. Second update. As you know, I asked to just drop it until last night so I could focus on my job. She kept her word about it, but I could tell she was very emotional and nervous. She's taking some strong meds for her anxiety, but even as strong as it is, I can still see that she's been very anxious. I wasn't intentionally trying to punish her. In fact, quite the opposite. I really was trying to give her a break as much as me. But she told me last night that not holding her or showing her any real affection, it's really been horrible for her. Well, last night finally arrived, and we had what my dad always called a come-to-Jesus meeting. I got home from work, and I brought dinner so there would be no distractions or cleanup or anything. We started talking around 6 and finally ended around 2-ish. In that time frame, we laid out a lot of issues that have been present and what or if we are both willing to do to move forward. Long story short, starting today, I'm going to be living with my brother for a while. She's understandably upset by all of this, and I'm making an effort to communicate openly with her so she doesn't feel abandoned or neglected. If you're wondering how we got from talking to me living with my brother, here's what happened in a nutshell. I know this is not going to make several of you very happy, but here's where I'm going with this. I want to save my marriage, but I can't do it living what I feel was somewhat a lie. I know she never intended to lie once we were married, but when I sat down and thought about this one question, would I have stayed with her if I had known at the time she did this? Each and every time, I answered no. So to me, she took away my ability to choose whether or not I wanted to continue, and we built the next few years based on the foundation of something that wasn't quite true. However, the truth is, we still built something. Sometimes foundations can be repaired, and sometimes you have to tear them down to build new ones. This is what I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping to shake things up enough for both of us so that we can start over. Like I said in the very first post, our marriage until this point had been what I would consider to be perfect, or as perfect as any one thing can be. But there was some very troubling things that occurred due to this, and here's a brief synopsis of our talk. I laid out the fact that while I absolutely was upset about the cheating, and yes, I still consider it cheating, which she has now come to realize that this is the way it is and is going to be considered, I was equally upset by her lack of consideration for my feelings on this. I told her that I resented being told I was immature and childish for something that, objectively speaking, I had every right to be upset about. Her response was to apologize and tell me she was in the wrong, and that while she admits fault and sees what I'm saying, that at the same time, she had convinced herself that because we weren't married yet, I was wrong to be upset about something that had happened before this, but she now sees where she was in the wrong. I then told her that I felt very disrespected by her associating with this guy right in front of me, and that I felt humiliated having to shake his hand. Her response was to once again apologize, and she said that in her mind, at the time, she felt like she was trying to show me that there was nothing there. She said she felt like if she avoided him or acted shady around him, that I would be more upset. I told her she was wrong. She said that out of all the things, this is the one that's upset her the most, because even her sister has told her how wrong it was of her to do this to me, and she was deeply hurt by this because it had hurt me, which is what she never wanted to do. I then talked about the lack of remorse over being with someone else while we were together. Her only response was to say that she was very sorry, how at the time she had just used very poor judgment, and if she could go back and change the past, she would. Then came the talk that got the most discussion, how I felt like she really wasn't sorry for anything, but that she's just sorry that I didn't just shrug my shoulders and say that everything was going to be okay. That there were going to be repercussions for what I considered to be an act of betrayal, and then an act of not caring about me. I'll give her full credit here. She was brutally honest about this, and at least she was, so we didn't have to spend hours trying to work our way around it. She admitted that when we got home after the event, she started to realize that I wasn't going to let this go, and then as time went on, she knew how this was an issue. Her first instinct was to be mad at me for being mad at her, but then realized even from her own point of view how stupid that was. But again, she had it in her head that she was my wife, and I should easily forgive and forget something that happened way before we were married. She also admitted that when it became real, she frankly outright panicked thinking about losing her marriage. Nobody on either side of her family is divorced, so she would be the first, and she admitted to that being a big factor in her panic attack. But as the week has progressed and she's spoken more to her family, she's seen that what she has put in her mind about marriage isn't the end-all be-all she thought it was. She also did really feel bad about bringing the guy around me. However, you will notice, which I did too, that she never said she felt guilty about being with him. Now, I also want you all to know this. What I've given you above is a brief synopsis. She sounds like a robot in this version, and believe me, she was not. There were lots of tears, real tears. There was arguing, pleading, and begging. As I said, this went on for 8 hours, so by the time we were done, she was physically exhausted. I've set out the following steps if we are to reconcile, and it's totally up to her if she wants to stay together. She's very, very adamant about staying together, by the way. I don't care how illogical it seems. She is to never have contact with him again. This is an absolute for me and a deal breaker, and I was absolutely clear on this. We have to have couples therapy. While I'm living with my brother, we are still legally married, and this is not an invitation or excuse for either of us to see anyone else. Again, deal breaker in a second if either of us uses this as an excuse. Believe me, I will not, and I don't believe she will either. We start over to a point. I have to view her differently now. Even if I didn't want to, I can't just forget that she chose to cheat. So that's where we are now. I know this is not the update that some of you wanted to hear, but ultimately I have to go with what I believe will make me the happiest in the long run. My head says be aware, and I'm going to guard my heart for a long time, but my heart is still in love with her. We're going out on a date on Friday night, which she's really looking forward to. I have no idea how long I'll be with my brother. Heck, I may not even make it past Friday, but if nothing else, I feel like I have some control here, which I felt prior to this talk that I had almost none. In the end, I held her for a long time and we went to sleep. I do not want a broken woman. Right now, that's what she is. I want her to be my partner for life, but I do want her to know that to be a partner, she has to equally care about my feelings as I do hers. P.S. I had to do some real hard thinking about my new brother-in-law. Again, I've only met him a few times, and he seems like a nice enough guy, but at the end of it all, he certainly was aware of the issue. But just to keep peace in the family, I'm going to not make a stink about him, because that will certainly make every holiday tough going forward. As long as he never mentions the incident or the guy ever again, then I can live with it. Also, it's not going to make anyone happy, but the truth is, she knew perfectly well that what she did was cheating. She has never denied that. However, what she did do was think that being married was like crossing the finish line and that basically she got by with it. She hid it because she knew that it would be over if I had found out. Final update. I've been staying with my brother for a little over a month. I cannot say enough nice words about him. He's bent over backwards to help me, and I've come to appreciate him in a whole new way. Growing up, we were close, but never really close, if you know what I mean. This has shown me that our bond is much stronger than I ever imagined it was. The big news is that I just delivered her with divorce papers. Now, before those of you who wanted me to dump her jump for joy, let me explain something. I went to a divorce lawyer and explained everything, including the fact that I did not want to go through with the divorce, but wanted everything in place just in case. He drew up a divorce decree and made 3 copies. One he kept on file, one for her, and one for me. I decided to take the paperwork to her myself because I knew she would be upset and I wanted to explain to her what was happening. I gave her the paperwork in a manila envelope and explained what it was for before she opened it. I also made very clear to her that I was not going to do anything with it unless we both failed to meet the conditions we had agreed upon. I explained that I was committed to us, but I really needed to see that we were headed in the right direction and that this was only there as a standby in case she didn't think I was serious. Well, this did not go over well as I had hoped for, and in retrospect, this was my mistake. She had been doing everything in her power prior to that to live up to the agreement. We had been out on several dates prior to this that were great for both of us. In other words, my timing sucked. My intention was good, but it did make it look like I was not acknowledging the steps she was taking to make this work. This led to another giant anxiety attack that we could not get under control with her meds, so off to the ER we went again. This time they gave her a shot and sent her home, and we both agreed that we would just keep her family out of it this time. I stayed with her for 2 days just to make sure she was okay. This, of course, came up in our counseling session, and well, let's just say that I came across looking like a manipulative jerk, which again, in retrospect, I was. I ended up taking my copy and her copy and tearing it up in front of her. She doesn't know that there's a 3rd copy, but I plan on having him discard that as well. So now I pretty much feel like a monster because the look on her face when she got the divorce papers was something I never want to see again. She was so happy to see me that day, and then I gave her that, and then an instant combination of sadness and terror. Other than that bump in the road, things have actually been going very well. Well enough, in fact, that I'm moving back home this weekend. My brother has been great, but I'm cramping his style, no matter what he says. It's been fun playing Xbox every night, though, I won't deny that. But mostly I'm going home because she has done everything I asked her to do, and I've put her through a lot. I think she's paid a steep enough price, and I know she knows how serious this was. Also, in case I didn't mention this before, I do love her. She made a very stupid, selfish mistake, but it was years ago, and she had been almost the perfect wife up until that discovery. So I'm sorry to disappoint many of you, and I'm sure I will once again get many messages calling me names and calling me an embarrassment. But I don't live your lives, and you don't live mine. So this should be it. There, hopefully nothing else to update going forward. We're not cured or healed by any means of the imagination, but we're on our way, and it's just going to take time, patience, and understanding. Karen demands her daughter gets to ride my horse. I have horses, and one of them is a Shire, a big boy, very dangerous, and he's scared of kids. I only allow myself, my trainer, and my best friend to ride him because I know that they are experienced and can somewhat handle him, but he's the safest when he's with me. I have strict rules for anyone riding him. A first aid kit must be close by with a trained person, safety vest and helmet are required, and they have to build proper trust with my horse first, Melon. One day, my trainer and I were riding on a popular hiking path with Melon and another horse of mine, Winnie. We encountered a mother and her 11-year-old daughter on the trail. The daughter ran towards Winnie, who got a bit spooked by the sudden movement. Then, the girl approached Melon, and I immediately told her that Melon is not friendly. That's when the mother, entitled Mom, approached us. Karen, "Excuse me, my daughter really wants to ride that horse. I know her owner," referring to Melon. Me, "It's a he, and I'm the owner. I can't let her ride for safety reasons." "It's fine. We can go back to the stable and get her a helmet." Me, "Sorry, this is a private horse, and he's not friendly with strangers, especially kids." Karen, "What about that one?" pointing to Winnie. Trainer, "No, she's also a private horse." Karen, "But my daughter wants to ride. She's really good." Me, "Maybe she is, but this horse is big, and falling off, she could really get hurt. Winnie doesn't even have a saddle on. Your daughter can easily fall off. I'm sorry, but your daughter cannot ride either of them. Karen, you're just making up things because you don't want to share. Trainer, even if it was made up, OP, referring to me, is saying no. You have to respect their decision. But he's riding it. Me, yes, because I own them. They're my private horses. Trainer, we aren't going to waste any more time here, miss. The answer is no, and it's not going to change the more you ask. We'll be going on our merry way now. After that, we left, but the encounter didn't stop there. About an hour later, when we returned to the stable, guess who showed up? Entitled Mom. Now that you're back, can we use them now? Trainer, ma'am, no. The horses are tired, and they aren't for lessons or anything like that. OP owns both of them, and OP said no. But why? Me. Even I've fallen off my horse. Trust me, it hurts. I have a scar from surgery because he broke my leg. Then why do you even have them? Because he's still my horse, and I have a bond with him now. Even now, he could still throw me off if he wanted to. Then my daughter can build a bond with him too. Me. Building a bond can take months, maybe even years, and my answer will still be no because I don't know your daughter's riding abilities. Just let her ride. At that point, my trainer told me to go untack the horses and she would handle the lady. She managed to get Entitled Mom to leave after threatening to call the police on her for harassment. If someone says you can't ride their horse, please stop asking and just respect their decision. Am I the jerk for insisting on going on the family vacation of my ex-boyfriend? I, 34 female, was with my ex-boyfriend, male 25, for a year and a half. Our breakup was amicable. I never assumed it would last given the age difference. I got along well with his family, even with his mother who, understandably, wasn't a fan of our relationship given our age gap, but she did like me as a person. Before our breakup, we were invited to a destination wedding for his cousin in Hawaii. I was asked to make arrangements for flights and hotel. I didn't mind, so we made the arrangements together, selecting the place and flight times, and I put it all on my credit card with the promise that they would pay back their portions when they could, over $2,000 each. I have a good job and I could pay for the whole trip, and I was happy to do it to save them interest on a credit card. Since then, we broke up. Recently, I got an email from his mother asking for her flight and hotel information. I politely reminded her that they would need to pay back their portion. It's been 3 months since we booked the trip, and asked if they would reimburse me for my portion of the hotel and Airbnb since we broke up and I wouldn't even be attending. At first, her response was cool, but polite, saying that I would get my money back eventually. I didn't respond. She wrote back again with a much different tone, demanding the information for the hotel and Airbnb, and she said I was causing undue stress while they were planning for the big trip. I reminded her that I would happily share the information once I was reimbursed. She said that I would not be reimbursed for my portion of the accommodation expenses and that she was going to tell everyone how horrible I was for holding the hotel information hostage. I texted my ex and asked what was happening and why things had taken such a turn. He said I was being unreasonable and making everything about money, which was unfair since I knew they were struggling financially and I wasn't. I said that it didn't feel very fair to me that I was basically paying for them to go on this trip and getting nothing in return. He assured me that they would work on paying me back when things got better for them financially. I said that just wouldn't work for me since I had no guarantee and no idea how long that would be, and that I would still be out thousands of dollars since they didn't want to reimburse me for my portion. I offered instead to let them share one room at the Airbnb and one room at the hotel, but that I would be staying in one room as well. He was outraged and said I was making things weird, but my side is that if I have the time off of work already and it's paid for, why shouldn't I just go? I told him that I'm still within the range to cancel the reservations if that was a better fit, which he also didn't like since prices are much higher now and places are harder to find. I won't attend the wedding, of course, but I don't see why I can't take the vacation that I planned and paid for. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It's been several months and you haven't been reimbursed for even a portion of the trip. In my opinion, since you've paid for everything, it's your vacation to enjoy. If you can afford it, why not just cancel the extra airline tickets, keep the Airbnb, and have a lovely time in Hawaii on your own? Not the jerk, but if you can cancel and get refunds on everything, then tell them they need to pay you this amount by this day or you're going to cancel everything and it will be up to them to fund their own arrangements. My boyfriend is upset I want to split expenses in half versus a percentage based on income. My boyfriend and I, male 30, female 28, have been together for just over a year. While I'm neutral on the necessity of living together before an engagement or marriage, He believes it's an important next step, so we've started apartment hunting. My lease is up in October, and the owners are moving back in, so the timing works out perfectly. Mark currently lives in a studio-style place and spends about $1,800 a month on rent. I'm in a 2-bedroom plus tiny office. I'm spending $4,000 a month. Mark has a decent job, and he has no problems covering bills with a little left over, but it would be a stretch for him to go up in rent too much more than what he's currently paying. I make, for context, roughly 5 times the amount Mark does. Yes, I could pay more in rent than what I do now, but I'm more interested in saving and eventually leaving this area, opening my own practice, buying a home, etc. Also, for context and background, right now Mark and I split going out and our activities pretty 50-50. We take turns going out and planning dates, no real conflicts. I probably choose more expensive places and activities when I'm planning and paying, but it's not been a problem that I've been aware of. Anyway, Mark scheduled a number of apartment showings for us. He was super excited about all of this, so I let him take the lead. I assumed we'd be looking at places similar in size and cost to where I'm living right now because he'd want to keep his costs similar or less than what he's spending currently. Oh no, not the case at all. The whole first day was a series of luxury places sprawling all over some of the nicest neighborhoods in the city. Average rent on these places we saw was between $6,500 and $7,500 a month. I didn't say anything while we were looking, but when we got back to my place that night, I asked Mark what the heck was going through his mind with those prices. He said he picked his favorite places and neighborhoods first and figured I wouldn't mind upping my costs a little. But he had some options in the $5,500 to $6,000 range too that wouldn't even be a noticeable increase in rent for me. I was super confused at this point and asked him to clarify how he expected us to be splitting rent because the math just wasn't working out for me. He looked at me like I'd asked the dumbest question in the world and said because he makes 20% of what I make, he'd be contributing 20% of the cost, of course. I told him I completely understood that some couples do percentage-based expenses, but if we're going to be sharing a place half and half, then we should be paying for it half and half. We're not married, we're not even engaged. I'm not going to be gifting rent to him. He got upset because if we choose a place that he could still afford going half and half on, my rent would be going down and his would be staying the same. I agreed, but pointed out that he'd be in a bigger place in a nicer neighborhood, so he'd still be benefiting as well. Or we can choose someplace less expensive for both of us. I also asked if he expected us to split things like utilities and other household costs with this same formula, and he said of course. I told him if he wasn't comfortable with splitting expenses evenly, we didn't have to make the decision to move in together until much further on in our relationship, and I could just get another place on my own. Now, everything I suggest or say is met with coldness and sarcasm, like I told him I'm canceling his birthday or something. I get that he's looking at this from the perspective of what I can do, but just because I can doesn't mean I'm comfortable doing it. I'd understand if I had personally wanted to upgrade into something that he couldn't afford, but it's just not that important to me. Am I remarkably out of touch and unfair here? I'd rather not fight about this if there's a perspective I'm missing out on, but it just doesn't feel right to me. How do I rectify this? I think that the issue here isn't the split, it's him actively seeking out apartments he can't afford because he expects you to pay for it. Should it be 50-50? Maybe not, but the total budget and how it's split should be decided together, not him choosing a place and then expecting you to pay more than you currently do while he still continues to pay what he always has. It's the disrespect of his assumption that you would subsidize whatever housing arrangement he wanted. I don't think that the arrangement of splitting bills is wrong, especially with you making 5 times what he does. What I think is wrong is that he decided this on his own and then picked out luxury apartments because he thought you would just pay for them. This is an important discussion to have, and I think this situation is bringing that to light. It's time to have a conversation and decide the percentage and what you are looking for in terms of rent. Are you remarkably out of touch and unfair? Yeah, you are out of touch and unfair. If you don't want to move in with him, just say so. But if you do, then go in with good intentions, which involves an equitable split of things. Now, you are well within your right to ask for a place that costs less, but you should still split the cost of that place equitably. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Homeboy thought he had it made, didn't he? Not today. My husband is living with a female friend, and she has now become hostile towards me. My husband and I have been married for 3 years, and our marriage is on the rocks right now. It all mainly started after the birth of our first baby, in which time he became increasingly irritable, aggressive, and distant from me. Once it really started to escalate, we decided to live at different residences in a desperate attempt to salvage our marriage. That was 3 months ago. I'm currently living with my mom, and I work part-time while also taking care of our 18-month-old son with the help of her. My husband purchased a new condo with the financial help of his dad and lives with a female friend of his who's 22, who he apparently charges rent. I was uncomfortable about his living arrangement with this woman from the moment I found out about it, mainly because we agreed that we are not taking a break in the sense of seeing others, and we're still married, and we're not going through a separation, but just trying to give each other, mainly him, space. She has become very hostile towards me, which is strange because she's supposedly only his friend and basically a tenant of his. For example, I went to visit him with our son, and the whole time she was sitting near him and staring at me with hatred. When I asked if he and I could talk privately, she said, "No, this is our place." And of course, this made everything awkward, so I just left shortly after that. I don't know why she would act so hostile towards me if she was just a friend and tenant of his. My husband didn't seem bothered by her rudeness towards me either, and at one point, I thought I saw him smirk. I don't know if I should be concerned that he and her are becoming more than just friends, especially since my husband told me through text that him and I are still exclusive to each other. What's the best way to continue with this awkward situation? Girl, you can't be this blind. He's moved on. He's trash for not asking for a divorce already. His female friend is definitely his new girlfriend. You should have dropped him when he started mistreating you. Get a divorce. He's her problem now. You're young and you'll find someone better. Am I the jerk for buying noise-canceling earbuds to tune my wife out in the morning? I'm 32, male. My wife is 36. We've been married for 5 years now. I work in a job where every morning I have different tools and items to prepare. On some days, I'll be working in an office building. Other days, I'll be in a meeting, and occasionally I'll be working at someone's house. Each job requires different tools. Each day requires different preparations to go smoothly. My wife has a very bad habit of following me around with miscellaneous items chosen haphazardly, asking if I need them that day or not. She seems to think that she's helping me, but she's only distracting me and causing me to forget things that I actually do need at times. The issue is she won't do it once or twice. She'll rapid fire out ideas, and when I thank her but tell her that I don't need any help, she just goes, yeah, but how about this?" as she holds up a new item. I've tried sitting her down and explaining to her that she's not helping me, but she keeps doing it. The low point came last week when she got really stuck on a carton of yogurt I had bought. She noticed the expiration date was coming up in 4 days and asked when I was going to eat it. I said later. Then she asked if I wanted it for lunch. I said yogurt that had been sitting in my hot car for hours wasn't an appetizing lunch idea, which encouraged her to start Googling how long yogurt can sit out for. This allowed me to get the rest of my belongings and head out. As I pulled out of my driveway, my wife came out the front door in her pajamas and started trying to chase me down on foot, shouting about the yogurt. I waved and left. That was my breaking point. After work, I went shopping and got myself a cheap pair of noise-canceling earbuds. From the next morning, I put them in, played some white noise, I'm not a big music guy, and went about my business. My wife kept trying to get my attention by waving her hand in front of my face as she held miscellaneous items, but it was a lot easier than normal. I've also found that sending her on a little mission to get something will help a lot, and I wish I had thought of it sooner. Last night she set me down and got really angry for ignoring her in the morning. I asked what I was supposed to do, to which she responded, "You're supposed to listen to your wife." Did I go too far for taking this step? If you've tried talking to her and she refuses to change, what else can you do? After a point, it's basically choosing between getting your work prep done properly or not the jerk. Though I'm really curious why your wife refuses to relinquish that habit. Want me to cover the front desk while working on payroll? Okay, enjoy your angry employees. I, 29 male, have been working as a staff accountant at a CPA, Certified Public Accountant, firm for 9 years. Over time, I've become the most senior employee aside from the CPA who owns the firm. I really enjoy my job because my boss is fantastic. He pays well, there's no dress code, no micromanagement, and he trusts me to produce great work. It's been a perfect work environment for me. As a staff accountant, I handle payroll for about 8 clients as well as our own, which is crucial. I'm also responsible for bookkeeping for about 12 other clients, preparing the books for tax returns, and working on partnership and corporation returns. I'm basically the all-in-one business package. Among the 5 staff accountants my boss employs, I'm the only one who knows how to do payroll. My boss himself doesn't know it, and my coworkers aren't interested in learning it, which is understandable because it can be challenging due to clients often sending incorrect hours, resulting in redoing everything. Nevertheless, the complexity of payroll adds to my job security. Recently, we merged with another CPA firm, expanding our office from 7 to 18 people. Thankfully, my boss made sure that we still report directly to him, maintaining an equal partnership. This merger was quite a significant change, but as long as I continue reporting to my boss, I'm content. Unfortunately, the firm we merged with didn't seem to like us much. Their boss was a jerk with a completely different management style compared to mine. He was strict about the dress code, constantly nitpicking, and made their office environment tense. As the longest-serving employee, I bore the brunt of their office animosity. They even attempted to snoop on my computer a few times, which led to my boss advising me to start locking my office when I'm away. On one occasion, both our receptionists were out, and the other manager asked me to cover downstairs for the day. I hesitated as I was busy with sensitive payroll information, but he insisted. I called my boss for guidance, and he asked me to cover, promising to address the issue with the other manager. Reluctantly, I went downstairs, but then I had a brilliant idea. I could work on our payroll from there. I started processing the stubs and payroll taxes for our company. While working, I conveniently needed to go to the bathroom. Before leaving, I minimized the window on the receptionist computer and asked for someone to cover while I was away. Unluckily for them, the snooping employee was the one who came downstairs to cover for me. While I was gone, he couldn't resist snooping on my work, and when I returned, all the minimized windows were back up, including the payroll summary that displayed all the details, including my salary. The snooper couldn't keep this information to himself and spread the news to everyone, including the other manager. Now, my coworkers already had some idea of my salary, but the revelation angered some of them. They started demanding higher salaries and threatened to stop working unless they were paid what I made. The other manager was furious, but couldn't take any action against me since I hadn't done anything wrong. To clear my name, I asked my boss to show the camera footage of the reception desk, which confirmed the snooper's actions. As a result of this incident, I no longer have to cover the front desk, and some of the employees who were upset with me eventually left. Our office morale took a hit, but my boss reassured me that we would overcome the challenges. The moral of the story is clear. Don't mess with the only person who knows payroll, as it can have unexpected consequences. No, ma'am, I cannot give you money you never spent. I've been working in retail for about 5 years, and it's taken a toll on my mental well-being. At the time, I was employed at a store that primarily sold cosmetics, and some of these products were quite pricey, leading to occasional outbursts from customers. One day, we were just finishing up a month-long sale where different items were half off each day of the month. These sales attracted a lot of business, as customers could get some decent products at incredibly discounted prices. However, they also resulted in numerous returns because people would buy things they didn't really want due to the heavy discounts. Nevertheless, we had a generous return policy, accepting items for a full refund within 60 days. On this particular day, a woman who looked to be in her early 30s, whom I'll refer to as entitled customer, approached our registers with a large box filled to the brim with various products in different states of use. She placed the box right at my till. "Karen, I need to make a return. Everything is on different receipts, but I have all of them." Me, "No problem. It might take me a minute to match all the receipts with the correct items." She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't thrilled with the answer. As I sorted through the box and scanned the products, I noticed some brand new foundation at the bottom. These were almost $60 each and had been recently on sale for half off. It seemed she had bought them during the sale, but changed her mind and wanted to return them. Me, "And are these products used at all?" "What? Oh yeah, they are." I sighed, seeing that the seal was still intact on both bottles. Unfortunately, I had to destroy these brand new products since the customer claimed that they were used. Despite my frustration, I scanned them in and put them aside with the items that needed to be damaged out. The products were priced at half the original value since they were bought during the sale, which was confirmed by the computer in her receipt. As I was about to continue processing her return, she spoke up. "Excuse me, but you rang that up wrong. These foundations are $58 each." Me, "I'm sorry, but you purchased them during our holiday sale, so that's why they rang up that way." "That's ridiculous. They're not worth that much. Just give me my money back." Me, "Don't worry, you will get all your money back. They're only $29 each because of the sale price." "Well, they're full price now, so you should give me the full amount back." "I can't do that because you didn't pay full price for them." "This doesn't make any sense. They're full price now, so I need that money back." Me, "I understand your frustration, but I can't give you money that you never paid in the first place. It would create a discrepancy in the register." "How do you even know I bought them during the sale? You didn't check me out, so you have no idea. Me. The barcode on your receipt provides all of that information. It's logged in the computer. The system knows you bought them during the sale. Whatever. This is stupid. Just finish my return. I need to get home. I nodded and completed the remaining returns. Fortunately, the rest of the transaction went smoothly and I sent her on her way. However, to my surprise, instead of leaving, she started shopping in the store. In the meantime, I went to the back of the counter to destroy the items that needed to be damaged out. My coworker, who had come up to help earlier, joined me. Coworker, what was that lady saying to you? Me. Oh, she had a bunch of returns. She wanted a full refund for something she only paid half price for, so I had to explain a few times that we couldn't do that for her. That was it, really. As I finished my sentence, the woman suddenly appeared from behind an aisle, looking furious. I was completely taken aback, not understanding what had upset her so much. Oh, so you had to explain things to me like I'm stupid or something? That's what you're telling your little friend back here? Me. What? I didn't even fully understand what she was talking about since she just appeared out of nowhere. That's exactly what I thought. I'm going to find your manager so she can know what a jerk you are to paying customers. I'm gonna have your job by the time I leave. I didn't respond to her outburst and just looked at her strangely, still confused. Both coworker and I watched her as she stormed into the back of the store. I felt uneasy and embarrassed by the unwanted attention she had drawn, so I quickly retreated to the back to wait and see what happened. After about 5 minutes, my manager, M, came to talk to me. Manager. All right, OP, tell me what happened. I proceeded to recount the entire story. Manager. Yeah, that's what your coworker said too. What she told me didn't sound like something that you would do, so I figured there had to be some embellishing going on. Me. What did she tell you I did? Manager. Well, she claimed that you called her an idiot for not understanding our return policy and then made fun of her with coworker when you thought she was out of earshot. I knew that couldn't be the whole story, so I wanted to hear your side. And so I waited in the back, patiently avoiding the customer until she left, relieved that I wouldn't have to see her again. Insurance firm insists on direct billing? Okay then, have it your way. I may get some insurance-related terms confused because I'm not knowledgeable about private insurance systems outside of my country, India. My cousin is Indian and lives in India and works for a major American cruise line. His usual schedule is 9 months of work sailing around North America and 3 months of vacation time back in India. The maritime insurance company that he's insured with provides medical coverage for him. When he was on vacation in India, he tore his ACL and MCL and injured his meniscus playing football, soccer. It required a ligament reconstruction surgery and some months of rehab before he was fit to work again. There is public health care in India, but for something like knee ligament reconstruction, it still costs money, although not as much as at private hospitals, and also takes time as there is a waiting list. So he decided to go private, which is costlier. So he went to an arthroscopic surgeon and got a letter from him detailing the estimated cost of the surgery, the date, and other relevant medical details. He emailed the details to the insurance company and they approved the surgery. Only one problem. They insisted on direct billing to the doctor. Now, doctors in India are familiar with direct billing, but it's mostly with insurance companies that operate domestically in India. Naturally, the doctor was hesitant to accept the arrangement despite receiving a letter of guarantee from them. He simply wasn't convinced of the legal validity of a letter of guarantee from a foreign insurance company in India. What if they, for some reason, refuse to pay? He can't do anything about it. So at this point, my cousin stepped in and suggested to the company that he'll foot the bill up front and then submit a claim, after which the company can reimburse him. The insurance company seemed to agree at first, but this medical cost containment company they were partnered up with was vehemently opposed to the idea. They insisted on direct billing even though it didn't make a lick of difference in terms of cost. He tried convincing them that no doctor in India would accept this arrangement from a foreign insurance company, but they wouldn't relent. At last, he said forget this and went on a citywide search and finally found a top doctor in one of the most expensive hospitals in the city who was willing to operate on his knee with a letter of guarantee. The doctor also worked in 3 months of post-op physiotherapy costs into the surgery bill. The hospital had the best rooms, the best service, and the highest quality of care. The doctor worked with some of the top athletes in the country, and the final estimated cost was at least 700% more than the previous doctor. The insurance company didn't object and simply approved the surgery. He expected them to question the cost, but it was only around $8,000, which is the equivalent of like 4 ambulance rides in America. That must be a paltry sum for the company. At the end of the day, my cousin got the best care possible because of the insurance company's inexplicable insistence. Or maybe they had good reason, but they lost money at the end of the day. Edit. Everyone amazed at the $8,000 bill? Let me tell you, it's a small amount for Americans, but it's still a big bill in India. A lot of Americans are flocking to India for surgeries for this particular reason. You receive great quality healthcare at some of the best hospitals here, and the in cost is almost a fraction of what you would end up paying in the US, and that's including for the flight tickets and hotel tickets at hotels like Hilton and Marriott. It's kind of depressing to admit that that price is actually more like 2 ambulance rides. If that. My son tried to refuse an ambulance ride because of cost. It was more than that for the single ride between hospitals. My brother had to have a ride for a non-emergency procedure between hospitals, different towns about 45 minutes apart. The first hospital refused to release him, so my parents could take him to the other hospital. The ride was billed at over $10,000. Am I the jerk for telling a guy on the bus I'd rather he not sit next to me? I, 35, female, commute into work in the city on Mondays, and it's a 3.5-hour trip. I normally sit near the front, and there's always lots of extra seats open, including lots with open seats open, so you don't need to sit next to anyone if you don't want to. I sit up front near the driver because it feels safer. Lots of people put their bags on the empty seat next to them and move them when someone asks to sit down. Previously, I always kept my bags on my lap while people were boarding, and if no one sat next to me, I'd expand a bit. A few weeks ago, about 20 minutes into the trip, a guy gets up and asks, "Do you mind if I sit here?" I said no problem, and he sat down. I'm catching up on work, and he seems fine. Then he begins to manspread and starts consistently applying pressure to the armrest area. This is one of my pet peeves. I loathe having to make myself physically small so that other people, to be honest, it's almost always men, can spread out like no one else is allowed to have personal space. But whatever, it's transit. It sucks, but so it goes. For the record, we're both fairly lean people. Neither of us appears to physically need to take up more than our allotted space. I didn't say anything, but I kept my legs and arms firmly on my armrest. Middle armrest, we each had one, refusing to budge. He kept giving me side-eye, applying more pressure, etc., but eventually seemed to settle into just applying pressure. Annoying, but whatever. Once I had to get some water, and he immediately took over my armrest. When I was done, I made eye contact to assert dominance, said, "Pardon me." He said sorry, and I got my armrest back. Pressure resumed. Annoying, but not enough for me to feel it was worth escalating or changing seats. Well, guess who takes this bus every Monday morning now? That's right, this guy. I started putting my bag down on the seat next to me until after he boards and then move it. I move it immediately and welcome anyone who asks to sit next to me during boarding time. Week 2, he did ask once the bus had started into its route. I said no problem and then got up and went to sit somewhere else. He gave me an affronted look. I sat in another set of open double seats on the other side of the bus. Week 4, he left me alone. Week 5, he did the same post-boarding move. This time, there weren't any side-by-side seats where both were open, but there were lots of open single seats. This time, I said, "I'm sorry. If you don't mind sitting in one of the other open seats, I'd really appreciate it." He glared at me, then started calling me all these mean names under his breath before going to sit somewhere else. At the destination, he caught up with me and said, "You didn't have to be such a jerk," and stormed off. Normally, I never discourage people from sitting next to me when they ask, so maybe I'm the jerk for telling him no. I could have gotten up and moved to one of the open seats, but I just really didn't want to. Not the jerk. You should honestly report the behavior to the driver. He was purposely targeting you. Not the jerk. I wouldn't have felt comfortable sitting next to him for 3.5 hours and there were other seats available. His reaction would make me want to get another bus. OP. I wish there was another bus or literally any other way to transit in. I'd happily pay a bit more for a train to get away from him, but they haven't restarted the normal morning train after cutting it off when ridership dropped 2 years ago. This happened to me once when I was 21. I was on an empty subway car and this guy came in and sat right next to me. So I started coughing really hard, just all over my stuff, really gross. He ended up getting up and moving to the next car. Not the jerk. He's being a creep. No one with good intentions specifically wants to sit next to the same person on public transit all the time. If he tries to interact with you again, I'd tell him that you're going to report his behavior to the bus company. Not the jerk. I'm guessing he has a crush on you, and in his weird, twisted reality, thought this was some kind of weird flirting. He was upset because you made it clear to him that it isn't. His fragile ego was probably dented and he lashed out. Do you have the same regular bus driver? If so, I'd mention it to them so they can keep an eye on the situation. If not, you could report it to the company, but if you don't want to do that, just be on guard around him. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the guy who kept trying to sit next to her? Please let us know. Dude probably thought they were gonna start dating and get married and live happily ever after. Am I the jerk for telling my friends they aren't ready for a baby? I, 26 female, recently learned that one of my best friends, who's also 26, and her husband, who's 29, are expecting a baby. I feel like a jerk since I didn't react with joy like everyone else, but I honestly can't support their decision. They've only been married for a couple of years, so there was plenty of time for them to settle down and have kids, in my opinion, but my friend has always had baby fever. I'm mainly concerned about their ability to be parents. They both work full-time, and when they get home, they complain that they are too tired to take care of stuff around the house, cooking, cleaning, etc. They go out to eat every night because my friend doesn't know how to cook, and her husband just doesn't want to. Their house is always messy between dishes, laundry, and general filth. They also have poor money management skills, always shopping for stuff they just see and want, but don't need, rather than buying stuff like groceries to actually cook meals. They've struggled to pay rent a few times because of this. In addition, their house is incredibly small, overflowing with stuff, and not a safe environment for a baby. It's very old and has a lot of issues. Realistically, how do you expect to take care of a baby with habits like that, and in a space that isn't suited for them? When I expressed these concerns to my friends, they essentially told me that I shouldn't worry about it because nobody is ever prepared to have a baby, and that I should just be happy for them. I get that you're never really prepared, but you can have a game plan, right? Start saving and making sure you have the stuff and space required. How nonchalant they were about my concerns made me even more anxious. You'd think I was the one having the baby. Yesterday, the topic came up again, and my friend asked me if I had changed my mind about it, and when I told her no, she was grated. I also learned they're now trying to rush a move to get a bigger and better house, even though she's halfway through her second trimester. She's starting to get defensive, saying that just because I don't really want kids of my own, that I was trying to bring her down, and that I should just support her pregnancy, rather than being concerned about future problems. I told her that she and her husband were too caught up in elation to see the reality that being a parent isn't just about cute baby clothes and being a friend to your kid. I did get snippy, which I shouldn't have done, but it felt like she was just brushing away what I consider valid concerns. I did eventually apologize, saying, "I'm sorry you feel that way, but I don't think I'm unjustified here," which didn't go well because it wasn't a real apology. Not one she wanted to hear, at least. I just can't bring myself to believe they are responsible or mature enough to have a baby, and that makes me feel like a bad friend. So, am I the jerk for telling them they're not ready to have a baby and should have waited until they get their lives together? Edit. Since a lot of people are saying the same thing, I have expressed these concerns before, many times, prior to my friend actually becoming pregnant. It wasn't unsolicited. She would ask my opinion, and I would tell her these things each time. Update. I was a jerk. I overstepped my boundaries and hurt people I care about. No excuses. I consider myself very fortunate that my friend answered my text message and agreed to see me. She's allowed me to go over to her house tomorrow so that I may properly apologize to her and her husband. I do not expect them to forgive and forget, but I would like to tell them I'm sorry. You're the jerk, because at this point it's too late and you need to be supportive of your friends. Like, your comments are so completely unhelpful, I don't see how you're wondering if you're the jerk. And just to be clear, you're not the jerk for thinking they're not ready to have kids, you're the jerk for saying it out loud. You're the jerk. You're not the reproductive police, and they're having this baby whether you like it or not. I hope you don't expect to remain friends with these people once their baby arrives, because they'll always remember how you didn't want them to have their baby. Not the jerk. Too many people do this. Raising a kid isn't easy, even with all the help and money you do have. Source, me. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my husband makes incredible money. It's still not easy. It's still a ton of work and a lot of money. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. I hope OP's ready to start babysitting for them and lending them money. I kicked out my daughter because she hasn't found a job since moving in with me. My daughter, Amy, who's 24, female, graduated university a couple of years ago and has had several part-time jobs since then. She would work for a few months, quit, and look for another job which has better pay. At the end of last year, she asked if she could move in with us, both in our 40s, so she could save money and look for a job in the field she graduated in. That sounded good to us, so we agreed. We did not expect any kind of rent or money from her at the time, simply that she would just find a job. However, it's almost August and she has still not found a job yet. We asked about her job hunt and she said that she was still looking and has not had any offers post-interview. I feel tricked and lied to because surely she would have found a job by now. It's been months. She's also never mentioned going to any interviews and it felt like she was lying to keep living here. Her field is one that's looking for more women to join the workforce. She has been living here for months to essentially do nothing. So I talked with my husband and we both agreed it would be best for her to live with her aunt, my husband's sister, as she works in the same industry as the one my daughter graduated in. Maybe she could learn some things that will help her get a job quicker. We then told Amy that she needed to move out to her aunt's while she looks for a job because it's clear she isn't doing enough here and her aunt could help. She was upset, immediately asked if she contributed to some of the bills, could she stay here? But we said no, and it was time for her to get more serious about applying for jobs. She said nothing and packed her bags and left. We tried calling her today to ask how her aunt's house is. She lives an hour's drive away and did not answer us. Instead, she sent us a spreadsheet and tracker of sorts which detailed job roles, application links, dates, and stages of applications where multiple said interview. I immediately felt guilty and tried to call her again. She will not pick up, and her aunt sent my husband a text asking us to respect Amy's privacy while she stays with her. Were we the jerks here? We tried doing what was best. You're the jerk. You both made a lot of assumptions about her job search and kicked her out without even asking about the actual job search. Unfortunately, if she hasn't found full-time work 2 years after graduating, despite a regular search, there is a critical issue. Am I the jerk for pre-gaming my wife's dinners? My wife and I are both 32. Since we got married and moved in together 5 months ago, my wife has simply not made nearly enough food for me. This is not a kind of situation where I'm constantly agitated at her for incompetence or anything like that. I would be more than happy to microwave a burrito. I would be more than happy to whip up a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But I can't. My wife has, every single night of our marriage, done the same thing. She'll make me a tiny dinner. I'm talking like a Chinese chicken salad with 30 grams of chicken and 10 leaves of lettuce arranged fashionably with dressing. When I finish eating, I'm still hungry because for a 230-pound man who works a physical labor job, it's not enough food. At first, I tried to openly communicate with her, but she always took it horribly. She would adopt a 1,000-yard stare and then begin talking about how incompetent she is and how she can't even make her husband a proper dinner. I'd try to calm her down with, "Oh, honey, that's not the case. I just eat too much." Or, "Don't worry about it. I can make a bit more." I tried to be overwhelmingly positive. It never helped. She would always just get incredibly disappointed in herself, cry, and/or take it out on me. Then she would make the exact same amount the following day. After the communication route failed, I tried to eat her dinners as is. It became hard to sleep at night due to hunger, and I lost 7 pounds in the first month. Eventually, I figured out my own system. On my way home from work, I started swinging by a fast food restaurant and getting myself a burger. I would basically pre-game her meals with some more calories. I figured it was win-win, as what she doesn't know can't hurt her, and I could have my fill of food. I would eat on my way home, walk in the door, pick at the salad or quinoa or homemade mac and cheese she made, compliment her for her delicious cooking, and later dispose of the wrappers discreetly. 2 days ago, I was on my way home and in line at a drive-thru. My mother-in-law was coming out of the restaurant. She ran over and greeted me. I asked her in a humorous way not to tell her daughter where she saw me because she'd take it badly, and she agreed. But then she told on me anyway. I got home to a furious wife who demanded details. When I provided the truth, she got extremely angry and looked legitimately hurt. I'm not good at handling confrontation and feel like I betrayed my wife in some way. Was I in the wrong here? It's a little concerning that she goes full passive-aggressive when you say something to her. It sounds like she has a really hard time when her carefully crafted mental image of herself is even slightly challenged. Not the jerk. He already told us he spoke with her and she gets the 1,000-yard stare. Then she's there crying and carrying on. Then her saying she will do better, and the next night she makes the exact same amount of food. She isn't listening, or it's some kind of control tactic on her part. Not the jerk. Just cook your own food. If she makes a fuss, just communicate that she's simply not making enough food, and despite telling her repeatedly, she refuses to increase the amount. Although from her reactions, she might be trying to get you to lose weight. Wife thinks OP is at an unhealthy weight and has him on a diet. Quinoa and lettuce for dinner says, lose some weight, bubba. Wife is trying to get him to lose weight without telling him that he's overweight. Would I be the jerk for not having my cancer-stricken ex-husband stay with me through his treatment? For most of our marriage, my husband, 39 male, and I, 37 female, had a very happy relationship. We had good jobs, decent money, 2 kids, and we loved each other. Then he got diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, and we went through years of painful treatments and recovery together. We moved to a small house to be close to the research center where he underwent treatment. His parents paid half of the down payment on the house. The other half was from our savings and investments. In the divorce, he gave me the house and took all of his medical debt. We've been divorced a year, but now his cancer has come back and he needs treatment again at the same research hospital. He wants to stay in what is now my house while undergoing treatment, and his parents expect me to house him and look after him because he was generous in letting me have the house without taking his rightful share. When we were married and he was undergoing treatment, it was new stuff that was expensive and also very physically draining on him. We were lucky that both our jobs were supportive and flexible, but with his health issues, kids, and expenses, we had to downgrade our lifestyle a lot. That, plus the physical changes in his body, made him very depressed. Whenever he felt a bit better, he'd go stay in his hometown. It's a small town where most of his family and a lot of his childhood friends live. I was doing all the caretaking of him while also dealing with insurance complications. I was also managing the kids, the entire household, and my full-time job. We had help from friends and neighbors, but it was very hard. I wasn't happy about him spending his healthy days away from us, but it was good for his mental health, so I didn't feel like I could object. While he was staying there, he had reconnected with his high school girlfriend. A couple years ago, he admitted to me that he was hooking up with her, and I filed for divorce. He had fully recovered from his cancer by then. There are other aspects around the cheating that left me very heartbroken and feeling betrayed. His giving me the house and taking all the debt was an apology of a sort. His parents feel that I owe him for getting the house and should let him stay there for the 2 to 3 months for his treatment at the facility. I do want him to be well, and I don't want my kids to lose a loving father. But I can't deal with having him around me, especially not if I end up being his nurse and caretaker again. I'm still very bitter about how our marriage ended. A lot of people close to me are telling me that I should support him for the sake of my kids. Would I be the jerk if I said I can't do that? Edit. They announced their engagement the day the divorce was finalized. That still hurts so much. I'm really struggling with this. I don't think that I hate him. A part of me still loves him as an old friend. I definitely wouldn't want my kids to suffer losing their father. He loves them and is loved by them. Update. The Sunday after I made this post, my ex-in-laws picked up the kids for a zoo trip. They sometimes come to pick them up to entertain them, and so I thought nothing of it. A few hours later, a very teary and contrite mother-in-law dropped off 2 bawling kids with me. She told them their dad is sick and won't make it if he doesn't stay with us and go to the hospital. We hadn't had a talk with the kids yet about the diagnosis, and she just completely dropped it on them. I was so furious, I was raging. I called the ex and tore him a new one. He was shocked too, and we together went off on his mom. She broke down and cried, begging me to not take away her grandkids from her, as if I'd trust her after this. X and I together talked to the kids, him on video, and assured them that yes, he is sick, but he'll be fine. He just needs to go to the hospital, and they'll make him better like last time he was sick. The kids settled after that, but my oldest has been at me crying and begging to make Dad come live with us. I promised them I'd talk to Dad and figure out what's the best thing to do. I swallowed a lot of pride to talk to him about why he was doing this. We had a pretty long and detailed discussion. The bottom line is that he's broke. He still has a decent job, but his credit is ruined. He has a lot of debt, and he stupidly got the cheapest insurance that barely covers anything. Fiancé is no help either. She's worse off financially. So he needs a place to stay. He can't afford this otherwise. His parents are funding some of his medical payments and are already stretched. He was finally all right when we broke up, so I have no idea what happened in such a short time. Anyway, X and his girlfriend moved into my daughter's room. My daughter happily gave up her room to her dad and is now sharing her little brother's room. Both kids are over the moon happy to have their dad in their home. My daughter keeps checking on him every few minutes to make sure he's still okay. Mother-in-law really scared her. I'll never forgive that woman for this. I let the girlfriend move in with him because I was too angry to care about who came to look after him as long as it wasn't me. I didn't know how I could bear having her in my home, but it appears to be more misery for her than me, and that strangely makes it more tolerable for me. She is teary-eyed and crying all the time. It's only been 3 days, but I'm so annoyed. I want to shake her and tell her to pull it together. The current treatment plan is for 3 months. I'm counting down the days. I'm thankful to the many people who gave me great advice on my last post. I wasn't expecting things to go this way. I'll slowly pull myself and the kids away and move. But for now, I have to deal with this for my kids' sake. Final update. My ex and his fiance moved out today. His treatment went very well this time around. He had to deal with general weakness and nausea, but no throwing up like previous time. It's amazing how much medicine improves and changes. He'll need monthly shots for a while, and I agreed to house him for a weekend next month, but after that, he's on his own. The stay went well. We had no drama really. I kept myself busy, and the kids and I traveled a lot. They both managed the rest of the stuff all right, and things worked out. My kids are happy and back to their normal stuff. I had a talk with my daughter about how grandma exaggerated things to get her way and how it's not okay, and she understood. She has shown no interest in visiting her grandparents, and I'm happy about that. The last week of his stay, his fiance went back to their town to take care of some stuff since he was doing pretty well on his own. He and I had a few long, detailed conversations. They were cathartic in some ways and saddening and maddening in others. I think I got some closure. At least I'm not feeling the bitterness the way I used to. On another positive note, all that dressing up and going out I've been doing has worked out for me. I met someone. We've been on 2 dates and it's going great so far. This is my first time dating since the divorce, so I'm keeping my expectations muted, but still, it's very fun and exciting. I hate my engagement ring and my husband doesn't know. I, 25 female, and my husband, 24 male, have been together for over 3 years. We got engaged last winter and have been married now for 6 months. I hate the ring. He wanted a traditional engagement, pick the ring himself, talk to my family first, one knee, etc. I showed him many photos of rings I liked. We even shopped together and picked a few we both loved. He ended up proposing with a ring that looks nothing like anything we'd picked together. He told me later he showed his mom photos of what I liked, and in short, she disagreed. She didn't like that we had picked lab-created stones. She also told him the shapes I liked were dated. She pushed him for real diamonds, which blew his budget, so my husband picked a tiny diamond pair, halo with stones around the band, similar to his mom's, just smaller. I hate it. I struggle with sensory issues, and the side stones pinch my fingers. I think about it all day, every day. I sometimes have to take it off while driving because it hurts to hold anything. I've worn the ring out of loyalty for my husband since he proposed. I bought my own wedding band, and the E-ring is little enough I can hide it in a stack of other things. I feel like a brat for hating it. It was far too expensive to be as ugly and poorly crafted as it is. I have to have it serviced almost monthly because the prongs on the side bend and snag my clothing. The jeweler I consult with has told me this can't be fixed due to the size. He's warned me that I will lose stones, likely most of them on the band if a single prong breaks. It's a constant reminder my husband picked his mom's taste over mine for a symbol of our commitment. I would rather have green fingers from something meaningful than this crap. Update. A few days ago I stopped wearing my ring. After the last repair, it's in my jewelry box. I've been wearing my wedding band in a stack by itself for now. My husband noticed and complimented my wedding band when I was driving on a short road trip together over the weekend. I explained that my engagement ring pinches bad while I drive, and I decided I would only wear it on special occasions to protect the stones. He's been aware of all of the repairs. He then laughed a bit and told me, "You could just not wear it at all. Keep it for sentimental value." I was a bit taken back, so I asked him if he had purchased insurance for it, like we had discussed after we got engaged. He apologized for telling me he would, but he decided it wasn't worth it to him a long time ago. He was waiting for the ring to wear out or me to stop wearing it because he's wanted to replace it, since he bought it and he wants to upgrade that bad boy as often as he can. In all of my avoidance to protect his feelings, it didn't occur to me that he didn't like the ring either. As I suspected, he honestly thought his mom's taste would be better. The conversations compounded, and it made him second-guess himself. After he confessed he didn't like it, I confessed the style isn't mine, and it made me think of his mom. We laughed together. He expressed he's already been saving for something special for a while, but told me to pick myself out something silver I can wear comfortably in the meantime. I'd marry him again with a twist tie. I wish I wouldn't have danced around the fear of hurting his feelings for so long. Live and learn. Am I the jerk for baking for my kids? Me, 37 female, and my ex-husband, 39 male, were married for 12 years and got a divorce because, surprise, not to me, I was never straight all along. We have 2 kids together who are 9 and 8. My ex got remarried 2 years ago, and for the last 6 months, the arrangement has been our kids stay with their dad every other weekend. His wife has 3 kids from another marriage who are all 12 and up, and they don't have a super consistent custody arrangement, so I never know when they'll be with their mom. I'm a big-time hobby baker. I even made my ex's wedding cake when he got remarried, and it brings me so much joy to cook and bake for the people I love. My kids affectionately call my creations Mommy Bakes. Since my kids started spending consistent time at their dad's, I've been sending them off with enough Mommy Bakes for the 2 of them to share for the weekend. Recently, I noticed when I unpack their bags, the goodies are untouched. I asked them about it, and the first couple times, they said they just weren't hungry or that their stepmom had made them something instead. This last weekend, they came home with the goodies still packaged and a note that said, "Bring enough to share." I texted their stepmom about it, and she sent me a lengthy text about how her kids don't think it's very fair that my kids get special treatment, and that going forward, she'll start throwing the treats away instead of politely sending them home untouched. I haven't responded because I'm not quite sure what to say. I never thought providing food for my kids for the weekend would cause a problem. So, am I the jerk? Edit. Since a lot of people are hung up on the quantity, I explained in a comment that the rest of what I make is put in their school lunches for the week. Edit 2. Thank you everyone for your input. Even the more harsh ones really helped put things into perspective. My kids' health, joy, and well-being will always come first, and I've put that in jeopardy by not being more flexible and accepting of our reality. I'm not going to send any more treats unless it's a special event, and in that case, I'll send a whole batch over to the house. Not the jerk. You are under no obligation to provide baked goods for her kids, especially since they didn't talk to you about it like grown-ups. However, in the name of family peace, it might be wise to start sending them with a large enough dessert to share if you want to continue sending food. It sounds like the situation as it stands is awkward and uncomfortable for your kids, and they're the ones who matter here. Insane Karen parks in front of a train. This isn't my story. My dad is friends with a train engineer, and he would always be super nice to me and my family, and he told us this insane, crazy story. Info you will need to know. So this story is about a train engineer, and as everyone knows, trains can't stop on a dime. But the important info you will need to know is about wheel slips. Sometimes trains can have a failed start or stop and slide across the track because the wheels lose traction. If a train goes into a wheel slip while stopping, it's extremely difficult to stop. Wheel slips are usually caused by weight distribution or not being able to gain traction. If a train has too much weight, it can go into a wheel slip easily. So the people who load the train need to make sure that it's just the right amount of weight distribution. On to the story. So let's call my dad's friend Tom. Tom was on his normal route, and in the conductor's seat is someone we will call Bill. Tom was going around 70 miles per hour and was about to come up on a crossing. In the distance, you could see a car on the crossing. He thought that the arms hadn't gone down yet, and cars were still crossing, as it was still a ways away. As he got closer, he noticed a car was parked on the crossing, and a woman and her kid were standing right beside it on the tracks, holding up a sign that Tom couldn't read. But he immediately knew this was bad. He slammed on the emergency brakes and blew the horn as loud as he could to try and warn the woman. As he got closer and closer, she wouldn't budge. But then the train went into an unexpected wheel slip. I'll explain why after. And now they were sliding at a high velocity and heading straight towards the mom and presumably her son. Bill and Tom were panicking, letting trains nearby know what was going on. People who saw the occasion were yelling at the woman and her kid, and as they were approaching her, people realized she wasn't going to budge due to what her sign stated. People ran and came and pushed her out of the way. Then a few moments later, Tom and Bill slammed into the car, and since they were in a wheel slip, they couldn't slow down. Luckily, after a bit, Bill and Tom managed to gain traction again and stopped 2.5 miles later. Bill and Tom were really scared about what had happened, and despite their protocol, they jumped out of the engine and ran to see if her and her kid were okay. Luckily, they knew they would be there because the police would need to ask questions. After apparently, according to Tom, what seemed like forever, they finally made it back to the crossing. They found the mom and her kid, and she wasn't there because she was stuck, she was protesting. The entitled mom proceeded to have a conversation like this. "Finally, now I want you to meet my son. He wants a ride in your train." Tom, "What?" Entitled kid, "I want to be a train driver. Can I go pull the horn?" Tom, "Sorry kid, no, we can't allow that." "Let him do it. He's just curious. Besides, You owe us one since you attempted to hurt us. Tom, why's that? Before entitled mom could proceed to yell at Tom, Bill found the sign and told Tom to read what it said. The sign stated, "Stop crashing into cars because you're too lazy to stop and enjoy the fun of demolition. Embrace the new generation." Tom, what are you trying to say? Entitled mom, the whole thing about trains can't stop on a dime is an old wives' tale. Admit it, you don't stop because you enjoy crashing into cars. Tom, what? No, we don't stop because we can't stop. The wait, I've heard it all before, and I'm tired of being lied to. Tom, okay, well, it's not a lie. Besides, a crash like this creates a huge inconvenience for our schedule, and we have to try to work around this. We don't do it for fun. What do you mean by embrace the new generation? Karen, I've tried to stop so many trains time and time before because my boy wants to be able to blow the horn and see what the inside looks like. He wants to be a train driver. He wants to be a train driver when he grows up too. You guys are so lazy, you just wave. Too selfish to let the new generation be excited to be a train driver. You guys are so selfish. Tom, ma'am, if we could, we would. I wouldn't have minded, but you must understand that everyone is on a tight schedule. Stopping can put a lot of people in danger, because if we aren't in a siding at a specific time, it can delay schedules, and trains can accidentally be led onto the line you're on and can cause a head-on collision. Oh, shut up. You guys aren't on a tight schedule. I've been waiting here almost all day, and it took forever to see a train. We got so bored, and we needed to find things to do. You know how many people I had to tell off? I got so many questions about why I was there. I said I was just putting coins on the track. Each time someone came by, I had to look busy. We put a lot of coins on there. Oh, I need to check them and go see how they turned out. Tom's and Bill's faces grew red with anger. Tom, you did what? You did what? Karen, me and my son put coins on the track. Is there a problem? Tom, how many? I lost count, we put so many on. Tom was furious because he realized why he went into the unexpected wheel slip. There were so many coins, and he was traveling so fast that the train lost traction and they went into the wheel slip that put many in danger. Tom screamed and yelled at the woman and asked how she could be so stupid. Tom told the officers what had happened, and she was charged for trespassing, and she committed a felony by making her car get hit on purpose. So Karen had a lot of bills to pay and spent just a small time in the slammer, and her entitled kid didn't get what he wanted. Everybody was okay, but man, this story when Tom told my family made us drop our jaws, and I hope it did the same for you. Am I the jerk for firing my vet after the way the nurse spoke to me? I, 29 female, pay $35 per month for an insurance plan for my cat, who's 2 female. This includes a basic checkup every 6 months. Her appointment was scheduled for today at 12 p.m. While I was waiting to check her in, it was me, one guy in front of me, and the girl at the front desk. A nurse came out from the back and told the girl at the front desk, "Hey, just a heads up, everybody went on their lunch break, just so you know." My cat has anxiety, so when I booked her appointment, they assured me that she'd be in and out. So I said, if no one is here, should I wait to come back later to drop my cat off? The nurse shot daggers at me and said bluntly, "This conversation doesn't concern you." I was kind of in shock because I didn't think I'd asked anything too crazy. I said, "I'm just confused since I don't want to drop her off if she's just going to sit in a room." The nurse said, "We were having a separate conversation. She'll be fine." I have pretty bad anxiety myself and wasn't here to argue, just to advocate for my cat. So I meekly said, "Okay," and I figured that was that. Well, this nurse gives me an up-down look, turns around and walks into the back. The door hasn't even swung shut yet, and I could hear her trashing me to her other nurses. She's laughing and saying, "You guys, there's this crazy lady at the front with her cat," and then the door swung closed. This is where I might be the jerk, because I shut down and told the girl checking me in I'm not letting my cat go back there, unless that person is not in the room, or if I can go back there with my cat. If she talks to me like that, how am I supposed to trust her to give the best care for my cat, who can't speak up for herself? I also said I wanted to make a complaint. I asked for a business card for a manager. The front desk girl gave me a card and I called the number. The front desk rang. She put it on hold and looked sheepish. I asked if this was the number for the manager or for the store. She admitted it was for the store. At this point, my cat is howling in her carrier. We had driven all this way and she was so shaken up, so sunken cost fallacy. I said I'd stay for the appointment if I could come in the room with her and make sure she was safe. The front desk girl finally admitted, well, no one is here. They're at lunch, so it would be for at least an hour. So the nurse had been lying about my cat being taken care of all along. I didn't want to argue anymore, so I said I wanted to reschedule for a time I could be in the room. She booked me for next week. Afterwards, I called my mom and she told me I definitely shouldn't go back, but I also shouldn't have threatened to make a complaint to the manager and be a Karen. So I'm planning to call back this week and cancel my appointment and my insurance and take my business elsewhere. I think I was sticking up for my baby, but I could just be a crazy cat lady causing issues when I could have just left. So, am I the jerk? Listen to your mom about not going back, but in addition to making a complaint, also write a review. Let other people know about their supposed business model of laughing and lying to their customers. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. The nurse said that comment knowing you would still be able to hear her, so that's a very weird bullying tactic. Then the front desk nurse gave you the wrong number purposefully to stop your complaint. Then you found out you were justified in your concerns because it would in fact be a long wait for your cat by themselves because everyone was on lunch. Completely, they're the jerks in this situation. Also, why would they have an appointment at 12 p.m. when the whole staff goes to lunch? This is so bizarre. Not the jerk. I would never go back there either. They dropped the ball several times. 1. Agreeing to give your cat a quick appointment and not following through. 2. Speaking rudely to you when you express your concerns. And 3. Giving you the wrong number to make a complaint. Plus, I've never heard of a store or service that lets all the workers take a break for an hour at the same time without closing. I'd switch vets for that reason alone. Like, go ahead and shut down the store for an hour, but don't book appointments during your lunch break. This is ridiculous, and I can't believe the vet spoke so rudely to your very reasonable question. And the audacity to mock you for it. They are major jerks. Finally, I have a concern about what your mom said. I really hate that lately anyone who complains about anything is called a Karen. You are not a Karen. A Karen is someone who complains and yells at workers over petty things out of their control, like yelling at cashiers for not accepting an expired coupon. You wanted to talk to a manager to complain about one of their workers treating a customer very rudely and then mocking them. That's completely justified. So please switch vets and don't think of yourself as a crazy cat lady. If anything, you are kinder than you should have been. If you enjoyed these stories, you'll love the next one. So click right here to come join us, and we'll see you when you get there.